Begin. Everyone at some point leaves relationships, jobs, and friendships. Sometimes it ends up being a blessing because they weren't right for us anyway. But what if you can't move on or get over it? What gives? Is this just you not being able to get it together? Or is there something a little more sinister at play? Unhealed relationship trauma is far deeper than you being stressed or relationship challenged. It's being unable to move on because of your previous relationship. Before we begin, we wanna let you know the goal of this video is to help you understand relationship trauma and possibly how this may apply to you. With that being said, here are 7 signs you may have unhealed relationship trauma. 1, annoying physical symptoms. Do you feel completely drained after a long-term relationship ended? A study shows unresolved trauma can make normal aches and pains worse. This seems to stem from trauma putting your body on constant high alert, which is due to the activation of your physiological fight, flight, or freeze response. A toxic relationship is stressful for your mind and body. Your body's stress response was only meant to last for a short amount of time, but as several experts have noted, putting your body under stress for long periods of time can lead to increased inflammation, arthritis, heart attacks, weakened immune systems, and chronic pain. 2, your body and mind feel disconnected. Since you and your ex broke up, do people tell you that you have your head in the clouds? Have you started feeling like your life was some movie you were watching from the outside when the relationship started getting bad? These are features of disassociation or feeling detached from reality. A study noted people who seek help from trauma often report feelings of disassociation. Disassociation involves the disruption of your perceptions, memory, processing, and emotions. These include acting or feeling as though a traumatic event is still occurring. 3, your brain works differently. After ending a toxic or traumatic relationship, did you notice getting a lot of brain fog, forgetfulness, or racing thoughts? This is because the stress from a toxic relationship and your body's response to the stress is ongoing. The stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, were not meant to be in your system longer than a few minutes at a time. Constantly having them in your system changes the way parts of your brain function. So you're probably gonna notice you can't concentrate, your memory stinks, you feel out of control or have racing thoughts, and you have a hard time figuring out how to feel. You get frustrated or angry easily. 4, major trust issues, even with people you know and love. Have you put up walls around you? Is it hard to believe in others now? In addition to changing the way parts of your brain functions, the trauma brought on by a toxic relationship messes with your ability to feel safe with another person. This anxiety might cause your mind to come up with every possible doomsday scenario you can in order to protect yourself. As a result, you doubt even those who only want your good and have done you no wrong. 5, you might pick fights or engage in risky business. Unresolved trauma sufferers constantly feel on edge, so they sometimes behave in risky ways to seek sensations, AKA get a rush, as a way to feel like they have control or to get a break from trauma symptoms, such as replaying the trauma, depression, or overanalyzing their faults. Emotional flashbacks and all the biochemical changes created by toxicity makes you feel like you're still in the toxic relationship. You feel like you have to fight to survive, even if your present situation is perfectly safe. People who experience disassociation as a result of trauma are more likely to lash out aggressively than those who are not prone to disassociation. 6, a constant sense of shame. Wow, I'm a horrible person. Or why didn't I see it before? I'm so stupid for staying. And I'm such a doormat. These are the common thought processes for those who have lingering relationship trauma. They blame themselves for things not working out and feel ashamed. The big difference here boils down to guilt and shame. Guilt means you feel bad about something you did. Shame means you feel bad about who or what you are. Too much shame or guilt can not only be paralyzing, but is also associated with trauma. Research has shown toxic shame can make the mental, emotional, and physical symptoms of trauma much worse. And 7, you react physically to emotional triggers. Have you ever heard a song or seen a picture that made you feel nostalgic? When you have unhealed relationship trauma, Triggers that seem normal take a much darker turn. These triggers become more intense over time as the memories associated with the trauma become more intrusive. Researchers believe these physical reactions are due to the amygdala and the neurotransmitter acetylcholine in the stress response. A physical reaction to a trauma trigger might look like shortness of breath and sweating when your boss questions you. Certain songs or phrases give you anxiety, or you feel sick when you smell certain foods. Maybe you start getting chest pains or shaking when people innocently bring up your old line of work or your ex's favorite restaurant. Trauma is deeper than being stuck in the past. The symptoms of unhealed relationship trauma can hurt you, but by taking the time to learn about what you've experienced, you can start figuring out how you can start healing. Your healing journey may not go in a straight line, and it certainly won't be perfect. And that's fine, just as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other. Could you relate to any of these things? Have you noticed these in someone around you? You let us know in the comments below.
How's everybody doing today? It's the Proof in the Pudding podcast show, and I'm your host today. I go by the name of Sion919. I'm real excited about today's show. Real important topic. A lot of people deal with. A lot of people don't have people to talk about this specific topic. So today we brought in a psychoeducational therapist. She goes by the name of Natalie Collier, and we're about to start the show. This is Trauma Part 2. Yo, let's bring it to the stage.
Hey,
How you doing? How you doing? How's
I'm
everything going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Looking at the video right there, we're talking
hmm
about relationships and stuff like that. So it's like a lot of people deal with things like that. From looking at the video, what was your take on what you saw?
I definitely think that there are times that people do get into relationships that can add to their trauma, but I don't think a lot of times we look at the trauma that got us into the relationship in the first place.
Right,
So a lot of times when we already are carrying our traumas, um, that we're already unhealthy because of that trauma.
right,
So now we're going into a relationship unhealthy, and I think that's how a lot of toxic um relationships actually fuel themselves. We get into those things: codependency, um not feeling worthy, just very unhealthy, just very broken. And now you're just building on, you're stacking on. And I
right,
think sometimes we look at relationships for identity. That could be friendships, that could be, a relationship, dating, getting to be into a long-term relationship, even marriages.
right.
um we'll see that, just unhealthy situations from unresolved trauma.
Right. So pretty much you're going into a new situation with past baggage that's
Right,
hindering because you never dealt with it and you just tried to
right,
move forward. And I think a lot of us have done it. If some people are not dealing with it now, I think we all at one point or another in our lives have dealt with it. So I'm
yeah,
excited about today because we had a good conversation the first time we were talking
we
about
did.
the many steps of trauma. So
Right.
it's like it's so big. We're trying to break it down so we can talk about certain topics. So this
Okay.
week we're gonna be talking about relationships, correct?
hmm
All right. So let the people know what we're gonna be discussing and what can they expect.
so we're really going to talk a lot about, when we talk about relationships, we can kind of we can break them down into groups, or we can kind of make it kind of broad, because I think the biggest core part of a relationship is self-identity. And I
Right,
think if you have self-identity, you can learn to see how the communication of standards and boundaries kind of flow in healthy relationships. And I think that when we don't have a healthy set of a healthy self-identity,
right,
we actually don't have healthy communication. We don't have healthy standards. We don't have healthy boundaries, which in turn end up being unhealthy relationships.
right.
So, kind of in that nutshell, we're going to kind of cover some of those core things right there.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm definitely excited and it's definitely helpful information. So
Right.
we're talking about self-identity. Is that like people not knowing their worth, or is that like people that may not value themselves? When we say self-identity,
I think self-identity is the identity of self, right?
Right.
So we actually start exploring our self-identity as children. It's kind of like, you're a kid, you might like sports, you might like cheerleading, you might like, to draw, you may be, more of your artistic performer, you might like, so I
Right.
think we're constantly learning, and I think parents really should set their children up for that kind of self-identity exploration by allowing them to try different things. As a kid, I know my mother, I did ballet. I participated in the Miss America princess pageants.
Right.
I got to play sports. And it's just a really cool way to kind of figure out what you like and what you don't like.
Right. Versus
And
the one being stuck at home. Right.
right. So as we start to do those things, we start to kind of navigate a little bit about, I like this, I don't like that. This fits more of me, that doesn't. It's even like music. Some people like country music,
Right.
some people like hip hop, some people like classical or opera. You got some people that are well-rounded that like a nice little mixture of stuff. Those become identities that kind of express a little bit about who we are and what we like.
Right.
And I think a lot of times people want to mirror people so much that they're trying to assume someone else's identity or what the identity society says they should have, versus learning to be comfortable just within themselves and what they truly like and what they don't like.
Right. That's correct right there. Because a lot of times, like you said, it's influence. So you're trying to be
Yeah,
like your favorite entertainer or somebody
yeah,
that you admire, but you never really take the time to be you. And
right.
even a lot of times as adults, they put on a mask and it's like we put on this persona, but
Mm-hmm.
when we go home, that's not the real us. So,
No,
self identity is real serious. We're
yeah,
going to also be talking about boundaries.
yes. Boundaries are the core thing to any healthy relationship, whether it's, a relationship with your significant other, your spouse, your parents, your children, your friends. Like, boundaries are just that. We have physical boundaries. Um, for some people, it could be emotional boundaries. I don't really get into the mental boundaries,
Right.
but I think that a boundary is just what it is. It could be somebody saying, "Hey, I get that you're upset, but don't take your anger out on me." That's me setting a boundary. That's me saying, I empathize with you, but we're not gonna talk to me this way. We're gonna
Right.
bring our tone down. If you need to take 5, and then we can kind of discuss this. That's
Right.
great, but I'm not going to let you, abuse me because you're upset.
Right. Right. And that happens a lot right there. So
Yes.
definitely we want to touch on that because a lot of people, they hopefully most of them have got out of the situation. But for those that do, even when you get out, you still take those memories. You still take that baggage with you.
That's right.
So, yeah. So we definitely want to touch on that as well. And then we're going to be talking about communication.
Yes. Communication is one of the biggest things that I really love to talk about, and people don't really understand, because we are social beings,
Right.
and we all this is what we do. We talk, we have to communicate. But a lot of people do not know how to communicate in an appropriate manner. You have your passive, communicators, which they fail to express their feelings.
Right.
They're not going to express themselves. They don't want other people to express themselves. It's just kind of like one of those things where it's just like, we're not going to talk about anything. And then
Right.
you got your passive aggressive. I like to say the passive aggressive is kind of like passive, but they're the people that mutter under their breath. Like, we could be having a conversation about something, and then I might say something they don't like. So they'll mutter under their breath,
Right.
but they're not going to say it out loud. So
Wow.
it's kind of like, I agree with you vocally, but in my mind, I really don't. I
Right.
really think what you said is stupid, or your idea was stupid, So they're the passive aggressive. And then, of course, your aggressive communicators, their tones are always loud, they're defensive, they're always hollering. That is an intimidation factor. When they really feel more insecure, they just want to kind of keep people away.
Right.
And then you're assertive, which is just your healthy communicator. I can tell you how I feel. I can tell you what I like, what I don't like. I can actively listen back to you, rephrase what it is that you said, so that I made sure that I'm understanding what it is that you said to me, and we can have healthy dialogue.
Right.
If we're getting frustrated, we can say, "Hey, let's take 5, and then we'll come back and regroup."
Yeah. And that makes sense right there, because when we talk relationships, like you said, it could be with your spouse, on the job, your kids. So it's a big spectrum when we talk about relationships. So we'll take it from the beginning, and then we'll break it down as we're going. We'll take it
Okay.
from the top.
Okay. So I want to get into a little bit more about self-identity.
Okay.
I think it's really important that we are honest with ourselves.
Right.
And being honest with ourselves is understanding that everything doesn't fit. Right. And I call this, being the 90s kid, when there were so many different kinds of groups that were really like coming out, you had your alternative music and they kind of looked their own kind of way. And you had your
Right.
gospel kids, and they kind of looked their own kind of way. And you would see how we would call it clicked up, but it wasn't necessarily clicked up. It was, we wanted to be around people that were relatable.
Right. Of that same being. Right.
Of that same being. But sometimes even in those groups, you could see kids that just quite didn't really feel it the same way as somebody else felt it. Right. But they may have felt like maybe even culturally, I have to go along with this because this is what's expected of me.
Right.
Right. So you don't really get to explore the identity. And I think what happens, and we're all mastering ourselves. So I just want to throw that out there real quick, that we are all mastering ourselves. And I think that we work on that from, I work on that now as a 37-year-old adult. I'm still learning things about myself. But I think it's important to have a core foundation of self-identity. Right. Because if you don't, that's where you see, again, the wavering in the wind. But when you're dealing with trauma can strip us from having an identity. Right. So unresolved trauma, again, removes that element, maybe because we disassociated so much. Maybe we, were once outgoing, now we're very withdrawn and we're very depressed. So we're missing the elements of things that are needed to help us kind of discover who we are. Right. So as we progress in relationships with friends or boyfriends or girlfriends, we find ourselves maybe in situations that we shouldn't be in because we're looking for approval and acceptance from someone. Right. Right. Okay. So hold on one second, because you're moving fast there. You're dropping a lot right there. So it's like, the last thing we were talking about the woman, and you're looking for approval. Before that, we were talking about self-identity. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's break down. Okay. So you said from a past experience may cause a trauma. Yes. What are some examples of things that may have caused a trauma that people may not know they were traumatized, or they may know, but they may need help with? What are some symptoms of things? Of trauma? Yes. So symptoms of trauma is withdrawnness, depression, anxiety, anger, substance abuse, unhealthy ability to communicate. They may be passive. They may be aggressive. They could be passive aggressive. Those are some really core symptoms of someone who's been traumatized. Right. But I think you have to really get into the specific trauma and the individual to really understand kind of their workings, because like I said, we can go through the same exact traumatic event, but how we will respond to that trauma is going to be very much completely different because we're completely different individuals. Right. Right. Okay. So now we were talking about the relationships, how it causes you without the boundaries, you were saying. Yeah. The way they talk to you. Right. Yeah. So you need good boundaries, but people who don't have good boundaries in place aren't healthy in the first place within self-identity. Right. Because when you know who you are, you know what your boundaries are with people. Right. I don't like this. Don't do that. And if you do that, there's a consequence for that. Don't talk to me that way. I'm not going to talk to you that way. You become very vocal and you mean what you say. Right. And you say what you mean, versus you see today a lot of people that will say things, but it holds no weight. You done said it 1,000,001 times, but you ain't never bust no move. You keep threatening the idea of doing something. Right. but you haven't really done it. So now that teaches the other person, well, now I can kind of treat you a little bit more like this and a little bit more like this and a little bit more like this. And a lot of times they're not healthy either.
Right.
Because a healthy person is not going to be involved with someone who's not healthy. There's nothing in common.
Right.
So I encourage people who do have trauma or have had a traumatic event happen to them in their lives to really address that trauma.
Right.
Because it's about self.
Right.
It's about how you view yourself after that experience and how you think other people perceive you. And you really need to get into a healthy space about that. So that way you can be free and clear to be yourself.
Right. Right. And that's an important thing right there, because hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
So like you said, if you're not equal and if one is healed and one is unhealed, it's not going to work. So now you said a key thing is self-identity. So before you jump into something else, if you just came out of a traumatic relationship or a toxic relationship, or if most of your relationships have been toxic, at one point you have to take time, like you said, to focus on yourself and heal, go through your process.
Right. But a lot of people that are codependent, they won't do that because we live in a society, and I find this to be very interesting. I think it's a case study within itself, and I don't think it's necessarily just trauma. I'm curious about the people's how they view themselves as a whole, because people in today's society jump from relationship to relationship.
Right.
It's like there is no gap to be alone, because it's something about having to deal with yourself that they don't want to deal with. So it's like, if I just get over the X with the next, but really you're still carrying all of that baggage. You haven't even figured out what you've done wrong in the relationship to really see what went wrong, because a lot of times we like to blame other people. Right. It's the blame game. So you're blaming the ex for why the relationship didn't work out. I always say it takes two to tango. So they probably did some things, but maybe you enabled some things, or maybe you did some things that kind of triggered their reaction to some things, and then you didn't like that. But nobody wants to take that time to say, hey, this didn't work out.
Right.
Why didn't it work out? What did I really like about the relationship? But what did I really not like about the relationship? Right. And, figure out how that meshes, process that, write some things down, really take some notes, and really be, aware of self and say, okay, this is a teachable moment for me.
Right.
Let me really see myself, because if you're not trying to really self-improve, but you're trying to mass self-improvement, you're never going to get the result that you want to get in the end.
Right. So now you're in the mirror. You're having that moment of truth with self. Now this is where, all the jokes aside, is for real now. You start finding the flaws. You start going back to the roots of the problem. How long does this process normally take? Like, how long would a person need? Like 6 months to get themselves together? 30 days? What's the process?
I think it's a duration of how long you were in the relationship that really needs to be looked at. Because if you've been with someone for 10, 15 years, I'm not expecting you to jump right in the saddle, a year later. It may take you a couple years, because maybe you don't want to go into that next relationship comparing that other person to the person that you were with. And a lot of times people do that too. So when you get ready to get back out there in the world and you're ready to start seeing what else is available to you, you need to go into that with a non-biased opinion. You need to not go into that with thinking about how your ex treated you, what kind of relationship that was, because if you successfully healed and processed, you know what you're looking for. Right. You know what it is that you want. You know what your standards are. You know how to communicate appropriately. Right. Everything else is going to fall into place.
Right.
But a lot of times people just don't do that. And a lot of times people don't have as many long-term relationships today as, they used to. So that's also a difference. People don't even date anymore. I remember one of the kids I was working with when I was doing MST, and he was like, well, I'm dating. And I said, oh, he said, no, he said, I'm talking to someone. And I said, you're talking? He said, yeah, that means we're together. And I
Right.
was like, oh, like I'm learning, what was going on. And I was like, so talking means that you're in a relationship. Like, that's heavy.
Wow.
Not people don't date anymore. And then people do get criticized for dating today. Like, I remember being told that, dating didn't mean that you were sleeping with people. Dating meant just what that concept is. You can
Dating.
go on a date with Tony, you can go on a date with, Leroy, you can go on a date. You're just going on a date. You're
Right.
going out, you're having conversation, you're getting to know somebody. But today, dating is more than likely sexual.
Right.
People are not upfront and honest about what it is that they want out of a relationship. They're not
Right.
open and honest about where they currently are. People don't tell people that they talk to other people because it's like one of those things where it's like a major turnoff. So I
Right.
think the whole aspect of how we even get to that place is so psychologically and emotionally screwed up that I see why people are not having healthy relationships and why people are not being open about communicating. And that's sad because it forces them to not be true to themselves
Right.
because they're worried that maybe something won't go the way that it should go if I say this or if I'm honest about that. So it's like the ulterior motive.
Right. No, I definitely understand that. And that makes sense. So the thing is, it sounds like it's like people because of their emotions or their
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
insecurities more. So they bring their insecurities into the relationship. So nobody wants to get played. So it's like nobody. So it's like you coming in with all this baggage. You're coming in with all these expectations. You're coming in with negative. You're judging them compared to
mm-hmm.
where does that stem from? Because it's like I see that on a whole. A lot of people, they don't even understand the concept of healthy dating, healthy communication, and stuff like that. Where do you think is the disconnect comes from?
I think there's a disconnect, maybe in what they saw their parents doing, how their parents' approach to relationships was, also your peers, your social media, your friends, um, constantly being fed. This is what
Right.
it should look like. This is what you shouldn't have to do. This is what you should be doing. You're constantly being fed somebody else's idea or approach to something. And my question becomes, are these people in the kind of relationship that you want?
Wow.
Because
Wow.
if they're not, you're taking advice from someone who's not married and you want to get married,
Right.
or you want to be here. You're not getting advice from someone who's actually able to guide you into that direction. You'll take advice from, and especially women, will take advice from our girlfriends who aren't even in the position that we're in.
Right. Right.
So my thing that I like to tell people is you can't tell me about being married because you're not married.
Right.
You gotta go there. And time is something that you can't speed up. And I notice people like to do that in relationships today too, is they don't
Wow.
want to go through the growth process of the relationship. They just want the end result of the relationship. And you're not gonna get that without time and work and effort.
Right. And that's like a house with no foundation. Eventually it's gonna fall. Or the first storm that comes.
Right.
That's why so many people call it quits. There's no longevity because the foundation was never made.
Right.
So, all right, a lot of the people out here, whether they're damaging still or already been damaged,
Mm-hmm.
how do they get healed? Is it like when you're in that moment, when you're taking that moment of clarity, you have to first admit something is wrong because
Yeah.
a lot of times we normalize these behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, relationships are really cool because this can be the first real indication for people that there is something wrong that needs to be fixed.
Wow.
And I don't think people really see that, especially like with our past traumas. But our relationships with people, especially when we become adults, watching how those things maybe fall apart or the toxicity of the relationship
Right.
is an opportunity for us to see, okay, something is wrong. Why or how did I even get here? And I think we've all questioned ourselves at some point in a relationship, whether it even just be a friendship. You know,
Right.
we've all said, dang, how did I get hooked up with this person? Like, where this person is just, this is just, you know, and then you got to start really going back and start saying, okay, what did I see in the individual? Or what did I think I was going to gain from this?
Wow.
And why do I think that this was going to be a great fit?
Right.
And when I see women in relationships, unhealthy relationships, I think a lot of women are seeking for the approval of their fathers. That father wound, that father trauma, it weighs big on women in dating, in relationships, in sex, and the whole idea of that weighs heavy on the fact that they're missing a father.
Right. 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 So even with the fathers being out of place and the system is, with the way that it's set up now, that the families are divided now,
Mm-hmm.
what type of effect does that play on the younger ones, and how does that play on the way the society is set where everybody's independent? Women don't need a man, man don't need a woman. How does that play a part when you're already trauma and you never took time to heal?
It only feeds into the pain that you're already feeling.
Right.
Because if depending on your trauma, right? So if you're sexually assaulted, you know, how does that play the view for a woman in society trying to want to one day be in a relationship? You know, it kind of feeds on the message that's being promoted today is it's all about your sex. It's all about how you look. So that only reiterates to her worth is between her legs. That same feeling that she would have gotten when she was sexually assaulted.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So we're
Right.
constantly promoting what is negative.
Right.
And that's why I say it's so important for parents to want to really be involved in what it is that our children are looking at. You know, your children are looking at, what they're
Right.
watching, what they're intaking, the message that they're being programmed to receive.
Right.
You know, we used to call TV shows programming back in the day.
Right.
Believe it or not, but believe it or not, they do program you to a certain extent. You
Right.
ingest something enough, you start to believe and start to live and start to mirror that very thing because that
Right.
thing becomes reality to you.
Right. So if they keep putting it in front of you, that's all you're saying, it becomes the norm. Okay, so
I
we're
mean,
talking
you can look
that.
at look like when you're on TikTok or you're on Facebook. You know, what was the one video of the woman that was giving her 2-year-old, passed her 2-year-old a blunt
Right.
and posted it to social media? Like you're teaching a 2-year-old
Right.
to smoke weed. That's a child. You know, you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds having their own YouTube channels, they Instagrams, you know, they TikToks, they on here being grown, makeup tutorials, they twerking, you know, boys saying things that they shouldn't be saying. Like
Right. The
we
thing with that.
glorify,
Right.
we glorify it
Right.
instead of actually being more protective as parents.
Right. And that's the thing I want to touch on that as well, because it's like now for fame, everybody's
Mm-hmm.
chasing the dollar, everybody's trying to make it,
Right.
everybody's in the rat race. And it's
Yep.
like the thing that I'm noticing now is like, well, it's been going on for a while, but the thing that's starting to become a trend is like the more irate it is, the more wilder it is, the more
Mm-hmm.
fame it gets. So these you go viral and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
that viral moment may last a few minutes, even a few months.
Yep.
But in the long run, a lot of the compromise, a lot of the moral choices they make, a lot of the things that they're willing to do 4 or 5 minutes, it don't equal up to that lifetime of regret or like I shouldn't have done it. It's like
Yep.
what's going on with the mindset? Whereas like you said, with social media, with these channels, everything's reality.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody wants to go live, everybody wants to show you, but it's like some of the moral standards that they do to get a like or to get girls getting naked to get a view, or
Mm-hmm.
guys doing something, a scene to get a view, or whatever the case may be. It's like standards go out the door for
Mm-hmm.
the likes and social media. What is that about?
I think that's not only just a level of trauma, but I also think that is just the wanting to be accepted. Everybody else is doing it, so you
Right.
don't have enough self identity to feel comfortable in just being self. You need to be seen. And the question becomes, why do you need to be seen? You know, we're a very vanity driven society.
Right.
Everything is about looks and likes, because now social media is the new social of communication.
Right.
So it's kind of like you taking high school, but you taking high school to a grand level,
Right.
but only this way I can mask and mirror who I am. I can be who I want to be. And now that's a problem
Right.
because people are really furthering themselves away from who they are to pretend to play a part for somebody else. Because
Right.
in return, they get a level of validation. It's gratification. They had there was a YouTube video I had watched not too long ago, and the girl was like, I had she said she had posted a picture on Instagram, and
Right.
she was so obsessed with just knowing how many views she was going to get that she was checking like every hour. And the question becomes, why? But I know it's about needing
Right.
to feel whole, needing that self-worth to go up, needing that self-esteem to go up. But it's like you're only showcasing the physical.
Right.
You can't really connect with someone on a deeper level if it's only surface level.
Right.
And that's part of the problem today with self-identity is everything is so surface.
Right. Right. So
So if we're not willing to get past the surface, then you're never gonna feel full of anything. You're always gonna feel void. Because
right.
what really needs to be fed is never gonna get what it needs.
Wow. Wow. So it's kind of like a seed being planted. So it's like if it's subsurface, you don't have no roots.
No.
So it can't stand. So let's talk about planting the roots. Let's talk about correcting that mistake and self-identity because a lot of us are out here broken. A lot of
Yeah.
us are walking around with baggage. A lot of us are walking around with no identity.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like you said, so it's like for that quick gratification of somebody liking me is like being admired. When
Mm-hmm.
you say it that way, it's kind of like back in the day where it's like you had the popular kids, you had the unpopular kids. Some
Yeah.
of the unpopular kids, they felt like their life was miserable.
Yeah.
Now you flip it to a virtual world. We're all
Yeah.
living in the Sims now. You can be who you want to be.
That's right.
What about the ones that's unpopular on social media? How does that translate to you're looking at everybody else? They're getting their likes. I'm depressed because nobody likes my stuff. Woe is me.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So it's like it's kind of how it flipped. The same thing going on in high school,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's in the virtual world. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. You'll
Yeah.
see them starting to change themselves as much as they can.
Right.
They're starting to look for what other people look like, who's getting the most likes, what do they look like, what are they into, what are they doing, and how can I mirror that? So now you want to take on the identity of someone else.
Wow.
And a lot of times you will see that. You will see a lot of that. I even can see that today with women in adult, just girlfriend relationships, wanting to mirror each other. I'm a firm believer that friendships and even relationships have a benefit. And yes, things will rub off on each other, but it never should rub off to the point where you want to be that person.
Right.
Or that person, you covet that person so much that now that is who you inspire to be.
Right. Right. Wow. So it's kind of like at the same time, it's kind of like you becoming that person in a sense. When we talk about coveting, it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like pretty much they become the teacher, you the student. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm gonna talk and say what the teacher says. I'm gonna walk. Excuse me. I'm gonna move the way that he moves. I'm gonna talk the way that he talks. I'm gonna dress the way he
Right.
dress. I'm gonna
Right.
wear the cologne he wears. It's kind of like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to be you at the same time that you're you.
Mm-hmm. You'll also see it we used to see it a lot in the military. I don't know if anybody from the military is even watching, but anybody that I served with, there were people that, we would see. I could tell, they just had it rough coming up because as
Wow.
soon as they got that little bit of rank on their chest, it was like power to the next level. That power high. Now I'm somebody. Now you're going to respect me because of this. I'm an E5 or I'm an E6. You're going to respect me. I see that with police officers. I still believe that to this day. I think some of these police officers, were bullied a lot, maybe when they were younger or picked on in high school. Now you've given them a position of power. Now it becomes the abuse of power because you've never had that kind of power.
Right.
So that's a problem because now you cause trauma to other people because at one point you were traumatized. So now you're no longer the victim of the bullying. Now you become the bully.
Right. Wow. Right. So it's like kind of like you said, the cop that gets bullied, now he's beating everybody up. Or the guy that gets with 7 or 8 friends, now he want to come back and bully everybody because he was the one getting beat up before.
Right.
So it's
because
like
people. No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's just like a reverse. They're like stepping on people to make yourself feel better. It's the same situation, but I'll let you take it from there.
No, I just was gonna say that it is just that. It is just that. We people will go from victim to becoming the predator, but a lot of times what I think they miss is you don't see what goes on in those other people's lives, right? So we can take the popular kids versus the unpopular kids. You don't know what the popular kids' stress may be. You don't know what their home life is like. You don't know what any of that looks like. You're only, again, looking at the outside image. And back in the day, you were popular usually because you dress fly. You know what I'm saying? You played sports. You had a super talent. Maybe you used to, spit verses all the time at lunch. Like, there was something specific about a person that gained them attention from other people. But that still doesn't show you beyond the surface unless you hung out with that person. But I think it goes back to image. Image has always been a thing that has kind of run society to somewhat shape, form, or fashion. We're so caught up with the perception of someone that we don't really take the time to figure out what's beyond the surface, because everything that glitters ain't gold. I'm a firm believer in that.
Right. So it's like a lot of, like you're saying, looking from the outside in, ain't no guarantee that that's what it's going to be. So it may look real beautiful, but then it could be bitter on the inside, or it's like it's not what it's cracked up to be. False advertising.
And I think a lot of times the truth is that it's probably much more rotten on the inside. Because I believe in security, people who are secure within themselves, it doesn't have to be all to the one extreme.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like we were talking about, like with the Birkin bags and the lifestyles. We were talking about trauma last episode.
Right.
You're willing to sell yourself short of happiness, of real full happiness, for a material item that's only going to grant you temporary gratification.
Right.
So they're comfortable living and dealing on the surface because the inside is rotten. Because if you truly were full and whole within your self-identity, that wouldn't be the make or break for you.
Right.
You wouldn't even deal with people in that same realm. Your conversation, the way you approach things and handle things would be very different.
Right.
But I just think that that's trauma, and letting trauma go entirely too far. As letting that thing just run amok, and now here you are as an adult. You're rooted in this behavior, this negative behavior, and this is what's at the forefront.
Right, because it'll transform a bloomed into full blown now. So it's kind of like, you get an injury, you pull it at first. They say, all right, take a break. You keep going. Now you strain it. Then you wind up breaking it. Now it's worse.
That's right.
It's kind of the same with trauma, because instead of getting healed in the beginning, now you take on something else. Now you take on something else, and now you're overwhelmed with all this trauma. You don't know where to start. So what's the process of being fixed once you're broken? It's like, okay, you're broken. You don't want to be broken anymore.
Mm-hmm.
What's the steps to get back whole when we talk about self-identity?
I believe that we could combat this two ways based on what someone believes in. But me being a firm believer, I believe in God, and I believe in, identity does come from God. If God says that we're made in his image, if man's made in his image and woman is made in the image of man, God has given us a hierarchy. He's also given us a design, and God has given us in different scriptures about the roles and what it is that we should possess and care about and not care about, and how we should carry ourselves and how we should, look. But I think for some people, they don't want to follow that guideline.
Wow.
And if they choose not to want to follow that guideline, then you definitely still need to get therapy. You still got to address the root of your trauma so that you can heal. Because you go into relationships codependent, friendships codependent, relationships codependent. You raising your kids, that ain't gonna be a healthy situation. You're not healthy, so you're not no good for nobody. And I think that's really the bottom line with trauma is you're not good to yourself. So how are you going to be good to someone else? And if you're not good for yourself, you're not going to make choices and decisions that are good for you.
Right.
You're making choices and decisions to make you feel better and in hopes that that thing is going to be what you want it to be, but it never is.
Wow. Right. That's powerful right there. And you could park right here. We want to talk about this part right here. You just hit a real hard topic right there.
Okay.
You said when you're damaged and you're broken like that, you ain't no good for yourself.
That's right.
You're damaging everybody around you. Even your kids you're hurting. Any relationship you jump in because you're already damaged. So let's focus on that. Let's put a microscope on that.
Okay.
Being broken and how even in that we try to do things to make ourselves feel better. But we, like you said, that's just temporary because you never dealt with the issue. People try to stay busy. They try to validate by, to stay away from dealing with themselves. So if you're at that broken place now, let's put the microscope on that and let's really deal with that. How it's like you hurt at that point. The best bet is to heal because you're hurting everything around you anyway. You're just making it worse.
Yeah, you are making it worse. Like when you are broken as an individual and you're angry and you got resentment and you feel guilt and you feel shame or you feel embarrassed, you're going to carry that right on over into whatever other kind of relationship you have, whether it's parenting or, a relationship with a significant other, even a friendship. You become, this broken person, but a lot of times you want that other person to be equally as broken. And people don't realize that broken people attract other broken people. Now here you are trying to fix this broken person, thinking that that's going to fix your issue. It's going to give you something that you're missing, because what you're thinking is it's going to be easier to get this broken person and try to fix them and mold them into what I want them to be than it is for me to go out and get a healthy person, because the healthy person ain't gonna have nothing to do with me because I'm broken. So this is my best alternative, and kind of trying to self-heal, but also trying to mold somebody into being the perfect thing that I want them to be. But you're not looking at the fact that, again, hey, if they're broken, this is only going to go so far. What you guys are going to develop is a codependent relationship. It's going to feed each other and enable each other and be codependent on each other. And as it grows and it grows, now you find yourself interlocked in ways that you don't want to be in, because you'll finally eventually reach your breaking point where the trauma that relationship is giving you is stacking on so much. Then now you just created a bigger situation.
Right. And that, wow. And that is true.
And I say that because we've all been there. You know,
Right.
if we haven't, you know, then okay. But I know for me, I've even been, and I can look back and be like, you know what? This was a red flag right here. You
Right.
know, I tell people, why do you have to rush in a relationship? Rushing is a red flag for me. Why do y'all got to move in together right away? Why y'all got to do that? Why you got to do that right now? You
Right.
know, why can't y'all just date? You went on one date, now you're in a whole relationship.
Right.
What part of the process are you skipping? You're not looking at the red flags of something that's moving so fast to mask something else.
Right. Wow. So now that's a whole nother, that's a horse of another color right there. So now, okay, when we say that, boom, you have some people, right?
Mm-hmm,
They meet a person, they
mm-hmm,
see butterflies, they get jitters.
mm-hmm.
This is the one, right?
Right,
Some people jump off. Some people it may work out for them.
right.
Some people may say this get jitters.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody they meet, they get jitters. So it's like kind of like, but I got jitters, and why they telling you that? You look like you always every one of you get jitters. You know what I'm saying? So it's a difference
Right,
of like that love at first sight, that 1 in a million love. Then
right.
I met him at the bar and we had jitters. We're together.
I think that it's okay. I think that it's okay to communicate with someone and become intrigued or to
Right.
become infatuated with them. To be like, man, they got great conversation, their energy is great, you know, that they look good, you know, all of that is just kind of like stacking on, and that's cool. Okay, cool. Exchange numbers.
Right.
Go out on some dates. But see, you got to have a level of self-control. And see, this is again the self-identity thing. Because
Right.
of respect, because someone who really wants something out of a relationship, I've heard people say, you know, hey, if it happens, you know, we having sex, that's what we do. Boom.
Right.
You know, if it happens, I'm gonna go with the flow kind of person. No, you're
Right.
not. No, you're not. Stop. Like, you don't know this person enough to truly feel comfortable about giving someone the most intimate part of your being.
Right.
Again, once you do that, you can't take it back. You should not treat your body so loosely. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Because you need to take the growth process. But see, I think sex is a weapon on both ends. Sex is
Right.
a weapon not just for women, but sex is a weapon for men.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times the misconstrued idea is if we do this, then you're gonna be hooked.
Right.
And you are emotionally for women, you're going to go through a phase. Women naturally, that is, sex is emotional to women.
Right.
So you go ahead and open that can of worms if you want to. Now, when that person ain't calling you and they're not responding the way you want them to, now you become upset. But what about you? And this is what I would say, the individual, what about you got you in that situation in the first place? Because what happened to, I got jitters, we had a great conversation, I was attracted to them, we went out on a date.
Right.
What are your guidelines around dating? Like, these are the things that people need to really be asking themselves. Like, do I want to go out on 5 dates or 6 dates before you come to my house? And do I want to meet you for the first 3 dates? And then maybe on, you know, the 4th or 5th date, I might let you come to my house to pick me up, but I won't let you come into my house until the 6th date. You know, if we go out on the first couple of dates and I don't like you, why do we gotta ghost each other? That thing is that there is a pet peeve of mine that I just don't understand about people.
Right.
You shut down and don't want to tell nobody. You just ignoring somebody calls. If you don't like somebody, be a firm person and just be like, you know what? We went out on a couple of dates. I really enjoyed your conversation, but we're not looking for the same.
Right.
But the reason that doesn't happen is because no one's being honest about what it is that they want.
Right.
Because that's what dating is for. And I've heard people say, well, I don't think you should tell nobody that you want to get married on the first or second date. Why not? Let's go and cut to the chase. Like, you're wasting time dancing around something, trying to feel somebody else out.
Right.
When it shouldn't be about them, it should be about you.
Wow.
So if you want to get married and have children, you know, these are the conversations that you should have. You know, hey, you know, what are your thoughts on marriage? You know, have you thought about having kids? You know, what religion are you? If religion is important to you, What are your views about finances and travel and, this, that, and the other? We're not asking the questions that open up sustainable long-term relationships and having goals of being able to work towards them together. You're not having the conversation about getting to know someone. You're having the very superficial conversations that are geared around sex that will only get you into that one position.
Into that one position right there. And that's real right there. And a lot of times we get distracted with the sex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on. What did Rob say? Do you think it could be that some people hate being alone regardless who they date? I
Yeah,
agree. I definitely think so.
I definitely agree with that. The alone factor, again, means that you have to deal with self.
Right. Right.
People don't want to deal with self. So
People don't.
it's easy to try to find somebody to be with that, is just going to, even if it's just for a short period of time.
Right.
I'll take, 2-3 months, and then I'll just replace them when they see something in me that they don't like. Instead of saying, hey, what is it about me and my track pattern, my track record in dating that has not landed me in where I want to be? What is it about myself that I'm not taking a look at?
Right. Okay.
And that's why it's important to communicate with each other about why we don't want to continue something. It's not about hurting someone's feelings. It's about having a realistic conversation so that they can see what it is that has affected you. And then for them to give you an opportunity to hear about what has affected them so that you can both walk away from something, having the opportunity to self-work on whatever is needed for your next relationship.
Wow. And that's the thing right there. You just said. So it's like if we be honest with each other and let them know, hey, this is where it's kind of like giving them a grade on the
Yeah.
relationship. Well, based on mine, you flunked. Da 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 da. Yo, so we're gonna part our ways or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. All right. So now you said people not honest. We subsurface so they don't have these talks. Even
Yeah.
going in the beginning, a lot of times, a lot of people they don't really have those real conversations. They, like you said, they rush into it. So
Mm-hmm.
they have an expectation that they never told the person about. So it's like sometimes, so now you don't move the way that I expect you to. I'm upset.
See, me and expectations, I deal a little bit differently in that realm. It is complex, but I deal differently in the expectation realm than most people do.
Right.
This is probably gonna shock some people, but expectations ain't gonna do nothing but set you up for failure.
Wow.
Period, point blank. Let's just go on and throw that out the window now. Instead of having a conversation about what it is that you desire for someone to do in your life.
Right.
Because, if I expect my husband to, let's just say, okay, my husband expects me to cook every night. We're just gonna throw that out there, right?
All right.
If he expects me to do it every night, he's not thankful for the fact that I do it.
Wow.
But the minute that I don't do it, he's going to be upset about why I didn't do it. Not grateful for all the times that I have done it.
Right.
Expectations leave that gap open for someone to say, oh, well, you didn't meet the expectation, so now I'm angry with you. Instead of saying you met the expectation and I'm thankful for that. A woman may say, or a man may say, hey, when I come home from work, you know what I'd really love? I'd love to get my feet massaged, at least twice a week. That would just be amazing. I'm on my feet all day. And if a woman did that for her husband, he's saying this, he's telling you what he desires. He's not telling you what he expects. It's all in the tone of communication and how we communicate. But if he says, I would really love this, and you do it, he's going to be grateful, and there's going to be gratitude behind that. Not the expectation that because we're together, I expect you to do A, B, C, and D, and then there's no gratitude or gratefulness for it because it was an expectation.
Right.
I expect you to be you is what I expect. And I expect you to be human.
Right.
I can tell you what I desire, and that person can tell me what they desire. And then it's up to us to be active listeners to say, hey, I really want to, show this person that I love them and I care about them and I'd love to meet one of their desires.
Right. And
which are different than relationship goals. We just want to throw that as separate from relationship goals.
No, that's real right there, yo. And I'm glad you're touching on these situations right here because it's like you said, it deals with the communication, being
Mhm.
assertive and having a clear understanding. So
Right.
in certain situations where it's like people, it's like they put a standard here. Like I'm the
Mhm.
prize, and this is coming from a damaged perspective, person's perspective. So they're looking like, okay, I deserve this, right? This is my
Mm.
list. I deserve this. So now the whole time I'm dating,
Mhm.
they're not hitting the list. They're not hitting the list. And I'm constantly reminding them that you're not hitting my list. You're not hitting my list. Almost like you should
Right.
be thankful that I'm even working with you while you're trying to get it together.
But that's not a standard, and that's a mis. See, standards are misinterpreted every day. A standard is the
Right.
person must want me to and be truly interested in me. A standard is that person must be honest. A standard is I must feel safe with that person. A standard is they must like children because I have children. Those are standards are non-negotiable. They don't go nowhere. They don't waver. They don't go from one side to the other. A standard is just what it is. A standard isn't I want him to be 6'1", making $500,000 a year. Baby, you dreaming. You dreaming. That's a wish list. Put the
Right.
wish list separate from the standard list. And for guys too, you want her to be a perfect 34, whatever,
Right.
whatever. You want the hourglass. That's a wish list. It's great. Hey, we all got wishes and things that we would love to come true. But the reality of it is it's not a standard.
It's not a
So if
standard.
you holding, if you have a misconception of what a standard is, and that's what you going into the world dating with, baby, you ain't never gonna find what you're looking for.
Never gonna find what you're looking
You
for.
never gonna find what you're looking for.
And a lot of times they watch broken and toxic relationships. So it's like we come in the game already kind of with a tainted mind.
Mm-hmm,
So to have a healthy relationship, you go through the process.
mm-hmm.
What are some mistakes that people make in the beginning besides rushing, besides not having taken their time? What are some other mistakes that people make when dealing with communication because their self-identity is not where it should be?
So communication is specific.
Communication is specific.
They're not. They're not. They're not being honest about what their goals are, what their dreams are. You know, those things are very important because you got to think about it like this, right? You got two people who are two completely different individuals.
Right.
They're going to become one. They're attracted to you because you are an individual. You possess something that is different from them that makes them feel complete. You balance each other.
Right.
But if you're not being honest about who you are, you're not going to get that.
Right.
We want to like I said, we want to wait and hold on that until after we feel like we've hooked somebody. I tell a lot of people, you know, people who know me and my husband or know, us from the military, they don't know the full story. Me and my husband were friends for like 6 months before we ever even got into the realm of really talking about our feelings in that regard.
Wow.
And I remember, and I'm just going to use this as an example because you get to learn so much about a person. When you're just cool and you're talking, you got to have a healthy foundation.
Right.
And so it was cool for us just to be really good friends. Like we could talk about anything, we're not overly vulnerable in the beginning. Yeah, it starts off a little surface level, but then you start to feel comfortable. You start sharing childhood stories and you start sharing, your past relationships. You start talking about your goals, your dreams, where you want to go. Next thing you know, you're starting to be like, man, we really got a lot in common. We share a lot of the same vision.
Right.
We like a lot of the same things. And then you can even say, okay, this person is stronger in this area than I'm in, and I can learn something from this person. So not only am I in a relationship where I can grow, but I can actually learn from this person, and they can learn vice versa from me.
Right.
So I think it's about really knowing that person. And for me, with my husband, that was important because I know I had did it wrong.
Wow.
I know where I messed up in past relationships and
Right.
the things that I had done that were not okay and what it was that I wanted to do different. And I'm not going to tell nobody that, everybody, for women and men that's listening, like, you can say, oh, well, 6 months is a long time not to engage in sexual activity, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you do and you really get to know a person,
Right.
then once you do consummate your relationship, it has so much more meaning to it.
Right.
Instead of it being just a lustful thing, and now that produces no fruit.
Right. Right.
And now
You want
you know what I'm saying?
right. You want longevity, not just that moment. So it's like
Right.
that's the mindset. So if you're looking for long term, you
Yes.
won't mind putting in the work. If you're looking for tonight, you watching the clock.
Right. But you can't have longevity and not be seen.
Wow.
I'm a firm believer, and Cruz can be a testament to this. He can be, oh, thank you.
Wow. Salute, sis. All right, Ray. What's up, Reagan? All right.
But I do, my husband, when I say this is the mask comes off.
Right.
We think that now when we all meet somebody and we like them, yeah, we put on our best self. Okay, we all do it. You put on your best self. You're like, I think this person's attractive. Let me see what they got going on. You want to present yourself a little bit in this little bit of light.
Right.
But how long you think you're gonna keep that up?
No, that's the thing. Right.
Because once you start really interacting with each other, see, and for the people that move in together too soon, oh, that's gonna come off real quick. See, now you got yourself entwined in something that you didn't even know you didn't even know. You didn't even have a clue who you was living with until you started living with them. Now you don't like this person. You see what I'm saying? So the mask comes off. I always say the mask comes off in about 3 months.
3 months. 90
Because
days.
you been dating for 3 months, you seeing each other pretty regularly. You go into their house, you see if they messy or not. Now, when you first started going over there, it was nice and clean all the time. 2-3 months in, you gonna be like, you messy. He throw his clothes on the floor, or she do this. She got a sink full of dishes all the time. You can start to see what it is
Who they
that
really
may be
are, right?
right. They're the pet peeves for you.
Right. Wow.
So my thing is, and again, so why are we rushing to give somebody our best self to turn around and be like, I don't even like you. I don't even know you. Now but my thing is, you can't say they stupid. You just as stupid as they are.
Talk about it, yeah. You just said a fact right there. Come on. Come on.
So that's why self-identity again is so important. You can't get to none of this until you got some self-identity. And as a trauma victim myself, and I'll explain a little bit more about self-identity and just using myself as an example.
Right.
You watched the last podcast, you heard me talk about my sexual assaults. I didn't have the, and I thought about that, as I got older, hearing about my friends losing their virginities and, being able to do that. And I remember me not having that option to do that for myself, what that made me feel like. And I remember how that made me feel about having a relationship with someone and then being able to say, I'm not that. And then them, wanting to talk about your first time. How do I explain my first time? Does that make me look a certain kind of way? So now that becomes a part of your identity. This is what happened. I can't change that. So how does that affect me? Also being biracial. The 90s was hard on the girl, back in the day. I ain't even gonna front, colorism was a thing. It was a thing. They made fun of my hair. They made, they didn't like me because I was lighter than them. I didn't understand that, I was so much different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't control how I look.
Right.
But me and these, so you see just, and people expected things out of me, like, I don't think that my mother understands 100% what it, and I love her to death, but I don't think she understands 100% what it's like to be in my skin or what kind of trials and tribulations I have faced because of that. You know what I'm saying? Or people looking at you different because you don't necessarily like 100% of the same genre of music they like. Like, I like classical, I like opera music, I don't do country music. I'm sorry, country, but I just don't do country music.
Right.
But I like hip hop. I like some alternative music. I used to like Green Day and Nirvana back in the day.
Right. Well versed. Right.
Well versed. But you start to learn that who you are is who you are. Like, you got to embrace the good with the bad. You have to embrace it. Like, I wouldn't change my story for nothing in the world. I wouldn't be who I am doing the work that I do if my life was changed in any kind of way.
Right.
I love the fact that, my mother is just who she is, and there is some naiveness about her in certain areas, that's my mom, but I like being relatable to people. Right. And so me finding myself being more culturally open to certain things has allowed me to be more understanding of different things for different types of people.
Right. That makes sense.
But that's an identity thing for me. Right. Now I'm not going to sit there and say, I tried ballet. I don't like ballet. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like it.
Right.
But we got to learn to figure out who we are so that we can stay in our lanes. I know what my lane is. I like my lane. Right. Some people, and this is kind of feeding in, kind of getting a little ahead of myself, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it anyway because the thought is in my mind. So everybody wants these 6-figure lifestyles, right? Everybody wants to be famous. Do you really want that? Like, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't want to go to galleries. I don't like high heels. I don't like makeup. I don't like none of that. Give me a good pair of sneakers and we rock it. Some cut up jeans and a cardigan and a t-shirt, we win.
Right.
I like who I am. But if you take me and you put me in a different element, what is that going to do to my lane? And I think that's something that people don't think about. Like, women who are married to doctors, they get to go to those high-end gallery functions and all of that stuff, $10,000 plate conventions. And I don't want to do that. I wouldn't marry a doctor. My personality doesn't say that. I know what my lane is.
Right.
And that's not me to judge or say that somebody who married a doctor or married a lawyer, if that's your lane, that's your lane. You end up with who's relatable to you, that has the same goal and the same visions that you have. That's not my lane. That's not my goal. I don't want to be a multimillionaire. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want the pressure.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you give me all that kind of money, I'm still going to be broke. Okay? That's all I know. Still be broke. Like, but how would it change me? You get what I'm saying? If you gave me $10 million tomorrow, you're testing somebody's character and you're testing somebody to see if they're going to remain the same.
Right.
You got to be ready for certain things in your life. Or you just don't want certain things. Like, I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm comfortable with the self-discovery that the journey that I have going for myself. I'm comfortable in my lane. Right. People got to pick a lane that fits their identity and stay there. But everybody wants to be all over the place.
Yeah, you can't be all over the place. You're trying to do too much, so it's like it's never going to gel. Yeah. And like you said, a lot of times people make the mistake rushing into, and then they realize later this is not what I thought it was going to be, because they didn't take the time. So what are some healthy ways that people can implement to avoid these problems?
Don't lie to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Like, if you say something out loud and it's something for you, and you like, hey, you know what? I really like such and such and such and such.
Right.
I like gluten. I like sugar. All your friends is vegan and gluten free. You might just need to be like, look, I support the fact that you're, vegan and gluten free, but I like meat and I like sugar, and that's just what it is. Like, is this going to be an issue in our ability to be friends, or does it change the dynamic of our friendship? And if it does, that's okay, because people who are well-rounded usually have friends in different areas.
Right.
They got friends that maybe they do this with. They got friends that they do that with. That's okay. It just shows that you're multifaceted. I think people lie to themselves so much.
Right.
You got to stop lying to yourself and stop letting other people put you in this box that this is what you should be because everybody else is that way. Or if you want friends or you want people to like you or you want to be in a marriage or a relationship, you got to do. No, be you.
Wow.
There's somebody out there, there's friends out there that are going to fit you. Maybe not. You know, the realness of having friends today is a very small number, you know, but because people aren't real with themselves anymore. So if they're not real with themselves, they're not going to be real with you.
Right. Right.
If I can lie to myself, I'm going to lie to you. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm honest with myself, I'm going to be honest with you.
Right.
And I think we see that sometimes. You know, I tell girlfriends, you know, you put something on, y'all getting ready to go out, you be like, girl, did this look good? And she be like, yeah, but in the inside, you know it really don't look good, or you done told somebody something look good on them and you know that it don't look good on them.
Right.
Why you set them up for failure? Why you can't just be honest? Why are we so afraid to hurt each other's feelings instead of just being honest? And that's another thing. We're a sensitive culture.
Right. We are. We definitely are.
So that also allows a lot of us, you know, a lot of people to either be more aggressive communicators or more passive aggressive communicators.
Right.
You know, so if we're so worried about sensitivity, then you're already sheltering your self identity with that in itself.
Right. Okay. So you said you hit a key point right there when we talk about sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
and offense.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the people that get offended the most or offend the most people be the ones that be the most sensitive? They're the quickest to get offended. They got the nastiest attitudes. They hurt
Mm-hmm.
everybody else's feelings. They got a word for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment you say something to them, they become offended. Now they boo-hoo crying. They're sensitive. I know it's damage. I know it's a form of trauma. But I know in the Black community, that's become like a defense mechanism. Like, yo, I'm going to tell you off. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But then when the shoe is on the other foot, we take it harder because it's like, yo, I'm trying to do the right thing. So it's like we're sensitive, but it's from our trauma. What causes that? And why do we deal that way in the Black community?
I think it depends on exactly what is said. Because sometimes it strikes a nerve because that person identifies that is true about them. Wow. Or, you know, I think a lot of times it's truth.
Right. Truth hurts.
But we haven't been raised in a way to receive healthy criticism for self-improvement. So sometimes it's true.
Right.
Like, you know, sometimes people say things and it's just blatant. It comes off offended, but it really is just the truth. Like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but it is just what it is. You know, I'm a firm believer. I can say things a couple of different ways. I can say it nice and I can be tactful and tasteful about it. Right. But sometimes, you know, if I done told you so many times, it's going to come off at the end where it may just come off a little rude. And it's like, because how many times I got to say it to you? You know what I'm saying? Right. But I think that we have not been raised to be okay with corrective criticism, but to take it with a grain of salt sometimes. Like, you know, people will say things about you. Sometimes you just got to let that roll off your back because that ain't got nothing to do with you. Right. It got everything to do with them. Right. You know, people who want to throw stones and be nasty, you know, because we haven't been taught to take corrective criticism, and we're not looking at it in a twofold way, right? So when you're full in self and you have an idea of who you are, what you got going on, you know where you're going, you working on you. Some things people can say to you, you can tell when it's just them trying to be hurtful and them trying to be petty. Right. You can let that just roll right off your back. But if somebody's trying to critique you in a manner that's going to improve you, we should not be offensive. But we become offensive because it shows a lack of what we're missing. So people look at that as a flaw, as a sign of weakness, or a hole. You done punctured holes in them. Now you can see through them, instead of them saying, "Hey, man, I really appreciate that." I might need to look at that about myself.
Wow.
But we're so worried about it being an attack on the character. That's why I say you can usually tell the difference when someone's just trying to be rude versus when someone's really trying to give you the criticism for self-improvement. And if you can't decipher the two, now that becomes, something that individual needs to work on. But you should pretty much be able to decipher the difference with that.
Right. Okay. Now, sometimes when you're dealing with doubt and you're dealing with, we're talking about self-identity, no identity and stuff like that. A lot of times the louder voice becomes the influence. Sometimes. So like if a person is dealing with what we're talking about right now, and this other person has more influence. So it's like, okay, they could be being nasty, right? But it's like they do it in a way where it feels like you deserve it, almost at this point like abuse, when we talk about an abuser, where they make you feel like you deserve this, you brought this on yourself. And now you're mind tricked and you're thinking, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Maybe I'm too offensive. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Why would I? Now you're looking at yourself, but you're the victim, if that makes sense to you.
I call that the aggressive communication style, where the example would be is they say they're right and you're wrong, and that's just what it is.
Right.
Aggressive people usually are the most insecure. So the aggressiveness is the intimidation factor to get you to back off. If I'm louder than you, my tone's louder than my tone sounds a certain kind of way, I'm going to dominate this conversation. We can't go no further.
Right.
And usually they'll do that with people that they know are more passive aggressive, more passive, or passive aggressive, because it gives them control. But it's really just a defense mechanism for themselves.
Right.
It really is just a defense mechanism for themselves. And communication is everything. Like, sometimes you just really got to sit back and listen to a person. And then you be like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Or people that don't want to communicate. Like, how can you have relationships with someone who refuses to communicate with you? You can't.
Right.
There's no growth. There's your relationship is capped if someone can't communicate with you.
Right.
Because how do you press forward? Relationships are all about communication on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
You have to be able to communicate.
Okay, so now we're talking about some serious topic right here when we talk about conversation, because it's different types. But I know a few people that say, they never just were taught healthy communication, or they just don't know how to talk to people. Or it's like the way they talk, they say, I'm just like that, but they offend people when they talk. Different reasons of people that say they don't know how to properly communicate. So now you're dating. How does this translate, and what's healthy communication in dating?
Assertive communication, being able to say what you feel, be able to actively listen, be able to hear the other person, respond back to what they say, have a healthy dialogue of a back and forth. Nobody's talking over each other. We're both communicating, we're listening to each other, and the conversation is flowing, and we're able to get to a resolution. Walk away feeling like the conversation gained something. But communication, believe it or not, is one of the things that people do not do well at all. I used to be an aggressive communicator. I know that about myself. And, I know that was I used to use that for an intimidation tactic. That's how I know that that's mostly what it's used for your own insecurities. You're trying to, keep people from really kind of trying to engage you. But what it really does is it always leaves anger at the surface. Wow. Aggressive communication style is there's always that anger issue that hasn't been dealt with.
Right.
You have to learn how to communicate. You would be amazed at working in, the detention centers for adults and in the prison system, how many of them do not communicate? And they're older than me, don't know how. Communication styles are something that is passed down to us by the people that, our parents, maybe our grandparents, people that were in our lives that were a huge part of raising us. How did they communicate? Wow. What did they fail to communicate?
Right.
Remember we said we come up from the generation where it's no because I told you so. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You want to ask why, I ain't got to give you an answer. We're not communicating. You're telling me.
Right.
Now I get it in certain instances.
Right.
You don't have to explain yourself. But the explanation is not necessarily for you, it's for someone else to have understanding.
To have an understanding. And you just said a powerful thing that applies now. So okay, you grow up in the household, and that's the mindset. You don't ask because I said so. That's why. Mm-hmm. So now you're not no accountability. It's like I did it because I did it. Right. You don't have to explain yourself. Now you're in a relationship where it affects another person.
Right.
I ain't gonna tell you nothing. I did it because I did what I did.
Yeah.
How does that affect the relationship, and how can you fix it? If the person they realize I'm an aggressor, I'm coming in with this mentality. Okay. How do I fix it? And if and then on the flip side, if the other person is the aggressor and you're assertive, what advice would you have for them as well?
So the first thing is the other person open to seeing that their communication style is not productive? Because again, change is about self-desire to want to do so.
Right. But they have the mindset, I did it because I did it. Right. So they're not really being accountable. They're not really seeing a flaw yet. They not got to the point where they see as an error in what they're doing.
This is gonna be an answer that I'm gonna throw out there that some people not gonna like, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway.
Right.
If I'm assertive and I'm in a relationship with someone that's aggressive, your constant desire to want to intimidate me and to feel like you're gonna control the flow of the conversation lets me know that if I'm assertive, I'm already in an unhealthy relationship. Wow. So the likelihood of us even getting into a relationship ain't gonna go that far. But my thing is, do you see that when we communicate, we're not getting anywhere with it? Right. And are you open to, learning how to effectively communicate so that we can have productive communication?
Right.
If you're not, then that's it, because we have got to get out of the realm of wanting to save each other. Wow. Because here's the problem.
Right.
Change isn't about, I'm not going to change because I want to be in a relationship with someone. Right. I have to see the need to change for self-improvement of the individual. Now, how does my self-improvement and change benefit my relationship? Or does my self-improvement and change show me that this relationship isn't really the best one for me to be in? Right. Change is going to give you one or two things. Right. That's why you can see people who have been married 20, 30 years and they still get divorced. We're constantly going through changes. Right. But the thing is, communication is key with that, because you're able to communicate with your partner about the changes that you're going through, about your vision updates as an individual. Does that change your relationship goals? You're constantly communicating those things. So it's a constant opportunity to give the person that you're with an opportunity to say, hey, yeah, I want to grow with you. Wow. Or no, I don't want to grow in that direction. Right. Because now we're having choice. So you have to be willing to communicate. But if you're not willing to change for self, you're not going to change for the relationship. Now, if you do temporarily change for the relationship, you're only changing because you need me in some way, that you're afraid to lose some kind of stability that I provide. Not for the relationship is how you really see me and view me, but it's something that I provide for you that you don't want to lose. So you'll temporarily make changes that look like you're changing, but then in 2 months, you'll go right back to the same pattern of behavior that you were already displaying. Because the change is not about self, it's about someone else.
Right.
You can never change for anyone else. It has to be your desire. I hear people say, I changed for my kids.
Wow.
You can use that as the motivation, but the work part was yourself. You actually allowed yourself to go through the transformation so that you could be healthy for a relationship with your children. You can have a motivating factor, but you still have to do the work.
Right. You just said a powerful thing right there, because when you said changing for that relationship, that covers so many things. A lot of times people may change for the child. The child's living with them, but it's temporary. So it's like the child could be there 10 years. They want to narrow and straight. The 11th day after the child is gone, the parent jumps right back to like nothing ever happened, because it was temporary for the child. So a parent, they may say, well, I want you to make me proud now. That resonates in your heart for a moment. So now you feel guilty. I don't want to make my parent upset. So I changed for a little while for them. But it's not a temporary change. I mean, a permanent change. It's a temporary change. Or I may change for my partner because I don't want to lose the relationship. They fed up, so let me play nice for a few months. Or, she caught me up, let me play nice for a few months. But it's never going to be a permanent change until you deal with the issues. So like you said, you can only fake the funk for so long. And that's even in communication. A lot of times people, like you said, not being honest in their communication, we let things build up. They build up, and then they begin to fester. And now when we really get honest with the person, it's overwhelming, because it's like, oh, you hate me. I never knew you felt this way, but it's like, I've been coating for the last 4 months telling you, trying to be nice. You know what I'm saying? Now you done pushed me to my limit. That's a toxic trait in itself, that we hold it in. Now we explode. We were good yesterday.
Not
but
today.
I said, if they make chicken one more time, I'm going to lose it. I get home and it's chicken made. Now I jump hot. I explode. They don't even know why I'm exploding. What is that all about?
Because you're not talking about the issue. You never address the issue. You learn to build resentment. See, and we're funny in relationships because we expect people to be mind readers. Men and women expect people to be mind readers.
Wow.
I expect you to know that there's something wrong with me. Now, I can sit here and say, okay, what's wrong? Nothing. Well, it looks like something's bothering me. No, I'm fine. Okay, I ain't going to keep asking. You know what I'm saying? See, some people want people to constantly be up underneath them. Like, is there anything I can do for you? Can I make it better? Just tell me what's wrong. No, you're not my child. You know, in relationships, I'm not, I'm not your mother. You're not my father. That's not how this thing works. Like, if I ask you what's wrong and you refuse to want to tell me, because I'm letting you know when I ask you that I'm open for conversation. You don't feel comfortable or trust me enough, or you just don't want to talk about it. So now every time there's an issue, you don't want to talk about it. So it's going to take that one trigger. Prime example, you might have had chicken 3 days in a row. You don't want chicken today. I don't want chicken today. But instead of saying, hey, do you think for dinner we could have, maybe you cook some, some turkey, or could we have some pork chops, or could, you ain't going to say that. You ain't said nothing. But now when you come home and that chicken on the table again, you done exploded a whole ton of emotions of everything that's been building in that relationship.
Wow.
So now it is overwhelming.
Right.
Because I'm a firm believer, me and my husband, we have this thing where if we disagree with something, and we got an issue, when we talk about it, you stay on topic with that issue.
Right.
You don't get to bring up, you know,
Right.
because I'm gonna tell you why. And this is something that we have learned, and I think our relationship is so much better for it.
Right.
It allows us to actually address the problem or a problem or an issue. You know what I'm saying? We get to address that specific thing. But if we didn't never do that, when it comes to a head, how are we supposed to address all of this?
Right. Right. Now it becomes overwhelming. Now it's like,
because now it's like, you're right. I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't know. Oh, so now you'd have been sitting on this for X amount of time, and this is how you really feel. Like you've gotten to a point that resentment and anger are at the forefront. Now, I'm not going to tell people that they can't work through that because you can't.
Right.
My best advice to that is you need to go to couples counseling, marital counseling, or if you want to go sit down with your pastor, have somebody kind of in the middle of that, so kind of walk you through some of those things, because you really need to figure out what the root cause was. And are you just stacking onto one root cause, or is it a couple of different things that are just compiled together? You really need to figure out what the problem is, where the breakdown is. But that's what I tell people now is if you got an issue, if you need to take a day to gather your thoughts, that's fine.
Right.
You may say, hey, I really want to talk to you about this, but can we talk about it tomorrow? Can we, make time to sit down, maybe 15 minutes, we go outside, we just sit and we talk about this issue. I want to hear what your thoughts are. I want to gather my thoughts. Cool. Do that.
Right.
And address the issue. But look, it's funny. It's not funny, but it's just wild to me. The things that we can do in relationships and the things that we can't do in relationships.
Right.
Again, we can sleep with a stranger, but you can't tell somebody how you feel. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like when we start learning that we got things messed up, we really got to start self-evaluating. Like, I'm not getting nowhere with this. Clearly, I'm not getting nowhere. So what is it that I need to change and what is different?
Right.
Because again, I tell if you're comfortable in self, you're comfortable in your skin. This is the thing, like prime example, another thing. I was talking about losing weight, right? Using me again as a chopping block. And I've had people ask me, why you want to lose weight, this, that, and the third. Yeah, I want to get a little, I said, now this, and it made my husband laugh too. I said, my husband works out a lot, big guy, and I just feel like with him being a personal trainer, that when people know that he's a personal trainer and they look at me and they be like, well, your wife a little thicker. You ain't training your wife. I had thought about that. Like I really thought about that. And I was like, how does that make me feel? And at first, it kind of made me feel some kind of way, because I was like, there was a time when my husband was bigger than he is.
Right.
And I would see how people would look at him. And I'm putting myself on the chopping block, y'all. So be nice in the comments section.
Right.
But I remember how people would look at him. And I would remember sometimes how women would look at me. And how women would try to make me feel like, so he with you instead of being with somebody who would be in their quote unquote standard, right? Someone who's equally physically in the same kind of shape as he is in.
Wow.
So you gotta not, in relationships, you gotta not project that onto people, but be able to be honest. Like, that's a conversation for me to have with him and say, you know what? This has kind of bothered me.
Right.
But let me really identify why it bothers me. But it comes back to self.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So then when my doctor was like, and I had them heart problems, and my doctor was like, okay, well, you ain't got no choice but to lose weight. I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to get there. You know what I'm saying? But for me, I don't like to be forced.
Right.
I'm one of those people, I want to do something when I'm good and ready to do it.
Don't make me, don't push me, right?
Don't push me to do right, because I don't know, I'm like that. You know what I'm saying? And but my husband would say, you can't complain. And this is why I love him to death, because he always brings me back to reality. And we all kind of, get out there sometimes.
Right.
But my husband was like, well, you can't. No, we're not gonna have this conversation. Like, you're not gonna sit here and I don't want to hear the oh woe is me about it when you're not willing to do nothing about it. Like, I'm strong in certain areas. Right. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so my weaknesses sometimes will come out. And my husband will slightly remind me, like, look, you got complete control over that. So if you ain't gonna do nothing about it, we're not having this conversation.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? But he's being honest with me. He's not going to validate or enable something that is not going to benefit me. You get what I'm saying?
That's really keeping it real. Right.
We gotta do that with each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to be able to be honest with each other, even when we feel like it may hurt.
Right.
If the doctor said I had to quit smoking cigarettes, my husband was like, you got to quit smoking. And he was like, you can't buy no more cigarettes. And I just about wanted to throw a fit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But he was like, do you want to die? Do you want to have open heart surgery? What is it like? So I have to. He's going to keep it honest with me about what it is that I need to do in my life, the same way that I would do for him. Conversations in relationships and marriages are not always as peaches and cream as people think that it is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I have to be okay if he's not going to be honest with me, then who is? Besides myself. Wow. Because in relationships, we're seeking to be one with someone. We're looking for our other missing half. So if this is the person that you choose to become joined with, do you really believe that they don't have your best interest at heart? And if they don't, then why are you in a relationship with that person?
Right.
You can't have a relationship without trust. But you also can't go into a relationship expecting someone to validate you all the time, because validation comes from self. You got to be secure in yourself. You got to be able to validate yourself and not look for someone else to be your source all of the time. And people want that in relationships. They want that person to constantly validate them, constantly give them all the enablement to their behaviors. They never want that person to say no. It's not a healthy relationship. My husband says no a lot sometimes. And you don't think I want to pout? Sometimes I do. And I'm like, but you know what? I respect his decision.
Right.
Because I know that he has our best interest at heart. It's for the benefit of the team.
Right.
But you can't have that if you don't, again, if you're not healthy.
Right. And that's the thing. Like a lot of times I see from friends and stuff like that, a lot of times it's not like you said, it's not the team. It's like y'all going tit for tat at each other. It's like you were at war. You were friends before y'all started dating. Now you're dating. It's like now somebody, I don't know what happens. It's like now it's like y'all going to war like two gangs. It's like in arguments. So it's like you did that, you did that, you did. So now we score keeping and doing all these things. But the key thing that you just said that was important, be honest. Tell the truth. Tell me the truth. And a lot of times we throw that word around. Tell the truth, be honest. And people think when they say honest, they're thinking, I cheated, so I told you I was honest. We're not talking about that honest. We're talking about, yo, do I look like I'm tripping, or have I been tripping? Am I slacking off on what I need to be doing? Yes, you have been slacking off with what you need to be doing. Are you getting tired of us? I'm not tired of us, but we are having problems. Is everything okay? Well, actually, it's not. We're talking about honesty then, not faking the funk, putting the mask on, saying, yo, we're good, we're good, we're good. And now you get out here and you're about to get caught. So it's like before her friends go tell her, let me go confess. Or before his homeboy says something, now we're honest. Or I gave you the money, where's the money? I don't know what happened to money. Now the bank statement shows up. Let me be honest with you. I want to be honest now. We're not talking about that type of honest. When we're talking about a healthy relationship, it's not the pressure of I have to sugarcoat and tell you what you want to hear. I have to agree. I have the power to say, yo, no, I don't agree with that. Or you ask me a question, I can honestly, in love, give you a truthful answer. And it hurts later on when you find out that you've been stroking me or, stroking my ego or giving me answers because you felt that was the way. So the trust gets broken. And then in the big situations or when it's like everything is on the line now, we want to be honest. But in those times, that don't hold no weight because like you lied to me every day for 364 days. On the 365th day, you became honest. But the trust and stuff is already destroyed.
And again, it takes years to build trust. It'll take nothing but 5 seconds to destroy it. You know what I'm saying? I think it goes back to how are we dating? How are we dating, and what is it that we really, really, really want?
Right.
Your wish list and your standards are not the same. You gotta get real with yourself, right? Because I tell people all the time, you say you really want something, right? If it showed up at your door today, would you be ready to receive? Would you be ready to receive?
Right.
Because you have this whole idea in your mind about who it is you want to be with, what you want them to come along with, what kind of communication you want them to have. If you want them to be extra romantic, you got it all laid out in your mind what it is that you want.
Right.
What are you willing to give? Because you got to be willing to give, and you also in order to receive it, right? You got to be ready to receive it. Are you healthy enough to even receive it without, casting doubt every 5 minutes? All this, he too good to be true, and all this ain't gonna work, and all this and that and the third. And then you got people who it's too good to be true. Let me lock into it now and try to hold on to this forever because I've never had something this good before. Or, are you in a position to really understand what, reciprocating that is? And the reason I say that is I think women today reciprocate more sexually, not understanding that is not substance in a relationship.
Right. That ain't gonna hold it together.
In a relationship. It doesn't sustain the relationship.
Right.
You have to have relationships have to be like 4 to 5 components to it, right? You got your friendship, you got your partnership, you got your financial ship, you got all these different things that you got going on over here. Right. So when one thing doesn't work out, you can always fall back on that friendship. You got to be able to still communicate with that person like y'all are friends.
Right.
You got to be able to do that, but you got to have substance about you. See, that's the part where if you're dating appropriately, if you're really doing it right, you'll weed out a lot of BS. But see, the problem is so many people feel like they're in competition. Wow. They feel like it's too late in their life. I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 38, I ain't got nobody, I ain't had nobody.
Right.
Whose time frame is you on? I need to know. Because have you ever thought about maybe you're not in the space that you need to be in to have a healthy relationship? It ain't everybody that you done dated that the problem is with them.
Can you say that again? Run that back. I need to hear it. Now I ain't even throwing it on nobody else. Tell me that again. Say, Sion, it ain't their fault every time.
It's not their fault every time, Sion. It's not. Sometimes it's yours. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of times it's mine. I'm gonna get it first. A lot of the times it's been my fault.
I don't think I won't say that it's majority one over another. It's where do you see yourself that you even open the door for something to happen like that, right?
Right.
That's why getting to know self is so important. Like, you gotta be okay with yourself. Like I said, all my people who know me, they know I'm not never gonna be that girly girl that wants to go out and wear heels, and I'm not that kind of girl. I like what I like. I like the type of movies I like. I only like to watch chick flicks once a month, and I like to binge watch. Now I'm straight action. You know what I'm saying? You gotta know who you are. I like to write poetry. That is my creativity. I don't want to share it with nobody unless I want to share it with you. That is a big part of how I express myself and process my own thing. You gotta be comfortable in who you are. You gotta be okay with that. You know, you might not be as coordinated and dancing as the next person. But why is that a problem? Like, stop trying to make certain things about yourself seem better or less than. Like, everything about you is for a reason. Now, you can take all that negative in your life and turn it into a positive and give yourself an amazing story about overcoming and how it's added to your character versus it being you being a victim all your life and it being negative.
Right.
But dating, you gotta date right. If y'all can't learn, if people can't learn to date appropriately, it's never going to work out. Again, I believe that the old school standard, some of that actually worked for a reason. Oh, what's going on with my mic? What happened? I need to click it. Can you hear me, Sion?
I can hear you. It's just a little staticky a little bit.
Okay, do I need to like move something? Do I need to do something?
I'm just trying to move it real quick. There might be something blocking the mic real quick. We can hear you, but it's just a little distorted. It ain't as clear as it was earlier.
Okay, let me see something.
You might be good right there.
Is that better?
Keep talking. Yeah, it sounds pretty good so far.
Okay.
All right.
So I think we need to kind of go back to some of our old school ways of dating. And the reason I say that is I think a lot of people would find that they would get better results, right? So first of all, stop creating so many soul ties. Okay, leave sex out of the equation. Because you're more likely to be honest with somebody and tell them what you want and what you don't want when you haven't had sex with them. The minute that you have sex with a person, you have an emotional attachment to them and you're blinded by the emotion that you feel. That emotion becomes your driving force for everything else to follow. That wouldn't be in place if you weren't having sex.
It's still doing it a little. I can hear you, but it's still coming back a little bit.
I wonder why it's doing
that. It's because it's trying to static what you're saying. Now you're dropping the real jewels for him. So now the devil mad. He's trying to block it. But he's trying to block it. But
did it get a little better?
Hold on, let me see. He wrote something. Hold on, let me see what he wrote.
Okay, let me fix it.
All right.
Let me see if I can fix this.
Yeah, that's definitely true right there. A lot of people make them mistakes. All right, try it now.
Did it work?
It sounded a little better. We're gonna keep going. I mean, right now I can hear you. Once.
I'm gonna have to come upstairs and fix.
All right. Okay. Hold on. Why are you doing that? He just said something. Hold on. All right. You can't reload the browser?
Is it gonna kick me out?
It shouldn't. If it do, you'll just pop right back in. I'm gonna cue to a video while we're doing that. Hold on.
Okay.
All right. All right. I think you're good now.
Am I better?
Yeah, you're real good now. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it was. Yeah.
All right. So no, I said we really need to go back to the old school way of dating.
Right.
And we need to go ahead and stop creating soul ties. Okay.
Right.
The reason being is once you have sex with a person, okay. Once you have sex with a person, you're now dealing in your emotional realm.
Right.
So you're driven by your emotional impulses. The way somebody makes you feel becomes the golden rule. You want how they make you feel, but you don't know nothing about this person.
Wow.
So now as you start learning about a person, you don't like what you see. And that's why I said self identity is so important. Know who you are, know what you want, know what your standards are. Your standards are non-negotiable. If somebody look good and they don't fit the bill, they just don't fit the bill. Be okay with it.
Right.
You know, and you really got to know, for me, everything falls in line with my spirituality with God.
Right.
You know, that's important for me. I feel that if I do things the way he wants me to do them, then I'm gonna be right.
Right.
You know, he ain't gonna lead nobody in my life that he don't want to be.
Right.
But for those that don't choose to take that route, you know, you need to still be secure in who you are and what you want. Know where you see yourself in 10 years. They don't even ask those questions no more when you're dating. Where you see yourself in 2 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your 10-year goal? You know?
Right.
Where do they see their finances going? Do they want to live in the country? Do they want to live in the city? That could be something just as big as that can change the dynamic of a relationship. It says a lot about two people. They like the city. They like city life. Somebody in the country might like the garden. That person may not even want to put their hands in no dirt. Like, it's simple stuff, but it adds up. So if you can really demonstrate some self-control about yourself and really start looking at yourself before you go back out there and start dating, really try to run through your past 3-4 relationships. You know what I'm saying? Run through those things. And you know, really think about where your self-improvement was at. You know, what are some of the things that went wrong in those relationships? What did they do? And what did you do? Now, where can you self-improve? And what did you like about those relationships? Right. Because now you have somewhat of an idea of the things that you do want out of that relationship. What are some other things that you want? And yes, you got to let men court you. Women got to stop allowing themselves to try to be men. You got to let a man be a man.
Right.
A man doesn't want to be in a relationship with another man unless, you know, he's gay.
Right.
Men want to lead. That is, and people can get upset with me when I say this, but men want to lead. If men are the head of the household, you both can't be the head together. That doesn't mean that you can't make decisions together. That doesn't mean that you're not considered equal to each other, but you gotta let a man be a man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But you gotta hold him and show him that you got standards and that you got self-discipline and what kind of woman you are. Because whether people believe it or not, men are gonna be men and they like to look at women and they might go to the strip club and they might look at these little girls on Instagram. And yeah, that stuff is cool to play with, but he ain't never gonna take them home.
Never. No.
Man wants a woman that he knows that, you know, she do look good, she take care of herself, you know what I'm saying? She got her stuff together. But he don't want a woman that everybody else can get.
Right.
So you gotta get into some of that hidden heart stuff. So as a man is courting you, it is our job as women. If women have to submit to men the same way that men have to submit to women, submission is about trust. So this is the time in the conversations throughout this dating period that I'm getting to know what kind of man you are and for you to identify what kind of woman I am.
Right.
But if you're removing that from the table and just saying, oh, we talking, you know, we see each other every now and again, my little friend.
Right.
You too, you know, some of these people too old to be doing all of that.
Right. So, all right. So we kicking in the door now. This is real stuff right here we talking about right now. This is stuff that people not doing. Like you said, everybody want to Netflix and chill. my boo thing and all that. Yo, it ain't no titles. No titles, no face, no case, what they saying nowadays.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you, okay, the proper way with the courting and dating, how long would you say is the proper time to court a person to know if this person is worth the next level?
Again, this is the thing. I don't believe, I don't rush anything. I don't think anybody should rush anything.
Right.
But you got to figure out what's comfortable for you, right? So what is the ideal first 3 dates look like? Where is it that you want to go? And I think that dating can be a lot of fun for people if they would open their minds to it, right? Like you can go to dinner, but why do dates always have to be in the evening? Why can't you do, a brunch date? Or why can't you do a date where y'all go to the zoo? Why can't you have a date where you go do something super cool? Like maybe you go to an amusement park. Allow yourself to see this person in different settings and different environments, because it opens up the forum for different conversations. Right. Different environments create different nostalgias to be like, oh man, I remember when I was a kid, or, we used to go to the zoo all the time, or, I'm scared of roller coasters and this is why, or this, you're just opening the dialogue to really get to know somebody if you're willing to expound beyond what you just that every time we date, we go out to dinner. Well, why is that the only thing you doing? That's going to get boring. Right. And if somebody's first date is like, oh, you want to come over and watch a movie and we get takeout? No, I don't know you. You can't come over here. And that's what and men need to say that just as much as women do. Because sometimes these women are just equally as aggressive as men. Right. So that goes for men too. Like men have to be able to hold their own thing. You know what I'm saying? But y'all don't need to be booed up on the first date at somebody's house. You don't know if they're a serial killer or not.
Right. And that's
you know if they got nobody stuffed in the basement in dungeons and cages. That's a real thing. Like human trafficking is such a big deal. Like, why wouldn't you be like, no, that's not okay. Like, I don't know you. Public places, at least for the first 4 to 6 days.
Right. Get to know you. See who the real you is. And that's the thing right there. Even with the double standards. Mm-hmm. Women, they get a couple partners. They're moving too fast. They got 1,000,000 miles, like the song on them. A guy, they'll say in the same situation you said, a woman is aggressive. The man justifies it and says, well, what? Men don't say no. That's a misconception. Because on the flip side, women don't want a man with 1,000,000 miles. The same way a man don't want a woman that's been community property. The woman don't want to be with a man that's community property either. So let's talk about the double standard. Because for some reason, men, they feel like it's all right, I'm a man. But women that have a standard, they don't want their man to be the most road ride in the amusement park.
I say this, okay? You can't get on nobody about their pants. Like, here's the thing, right? All right. If you accept somebody, you don't get to bring that up. You get what I'm saying? Because everybody's got a past. Right. Everybody ain't always gonna be as honest about theirs as they probably should be. Right. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is who that person was then, is that who that person is now? Right. And why are we so focused on and why are we so focused on who that person was back then if that's not who they are now?
That's not who they are now.
Because, women, some of these women today don't have a right to say that. Now, with OnlyFans pages and the Instagrams and all, you know what I'm saying? Like, look, if
we
you
keep it real, yo, it's love. We give it love. We keep it real.
There was this girl, she did an interview and I watched it, and it was a couple years ago. It was on YouTube. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. She was an ex-porn star. And she was famous or whatever. And she talked a lot about the industry, but she talked about, her salvation and getting saved and what led her out of the industry.
Right.
And she talked about, now at the point she was married, but she talked about how much slack she did get in the dating and, going out there and trying to date.
Right, because of that.
Being so recognizable. And she was like, she got to a point in her life where she was like, the person that's made for me isn't going to judge me based on how I used to be, but they're going to see me for who I am today.
Wow. Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because we all have done something.
Right.
So you can say, yeah, somebody's past behavior, thank you, girl. Somebody's past behavior might have been risque, but you don't know what led them into that path. What led her down that path? And she was sexually assaulted at a young age, repeatedly molested, that led her into a life of promiscuity. In her mind, she figured, well, if I'm going to be doing this, I might as well make some money doing this.
Right.
So you don't know what a person's track record is, why it's like that, unless they told you. And then if they were honest with you and told you, and then you were judgmental of that, then they don't need to be with you anyway.
Right, because they open themselves up to be vulnerable to you, and now you use it against them. Right.
Right. And that's not okay. And you can't use people's, that is a trust factor right there.
Right.
But it's okay for somebody to say, you know what? I respect the fact that you were honest with me about that. I'm really sorry that happened to you. Right. I'm glad to see your growth. I'm glad to see those things. But that's just something that I can't get past.
Wow.
So it's how you say things.
Right.
But then that's a blessing for that person not to be in your life. If they can't see past it,
right,
then it's okay.
Right.
And
that goes back to loving yourself and not being ashamed of your past and not being a victim, but being a victor of your past. So as long as you're looking for somebody else to validate you or somebody else's approval, you stay on that fairy wheel. You just keep running. Maybe I make the next one happy. Maybe I make the next one happy, because you're not happy with self.
That's right.
And a lot of times,
No, and I think with self too is, who are you? That's what I ask people. Who are you? What makes you you? And when I would teach, healthy boundaries, in prison, I would ask the women, why are these boundaries important to you? Who are you? Where are you going? Like, you gotta understand your own journey. Like, yes, we rub off on each other, but your journey is yours.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? You are who you are. Like, I chose to go into psychology and then become a forensic psychologist. And I chose to work with that says something about me, about my personality, who I am.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, who are you? That's a question that people need to be asking themselves. Who am I? Because if we're all going to be famous, right? We're all going to be famous. We all going to be influencers. Who going to be doctors? And who going to be lawyers? And who going to be the future of politics?
Right.
Who's going to be the future film directors, and the clothing designers, or the people who are farmers. If we're all the same, there is no individual diversity within the world, and diversity is okay. It's a benefit.
Right.
But right now, everybody wants to be in one culture, which is hip hop. Everybody wants to be in the Black culture. Everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to be a rapper. Everybody wants to be a model.
Wow.
And I just think that, this generation is losing more of its grip of self-identity. And I think there are women in my age bracket who are struggling with traumas in their past that have made them so independent and so aggressive in nature that they're not getting what they need out of relationships. And then they feel like they're combating, they're in competition with the younger generation of women who don't have those same standards or boundaries that they have. So it's you're kind of dealing with a mixed bag of a lot of different things when you see a shift in the source of how we communicate.
Right. Wow. And that's the thing right there, because you have, like you said, you have some that have a standard, some that don't have a standard, some that's material chasing, some people. So it's like when you go out there, it's like it's not just black and white. So when dating, it's like that's why it's important to take your time, because it's like you don't know what this person is in it for. You don't know what their long-term agenda is, and you don't know what type of things that they value. It may be material or money that overrides you being a good heart person or you being this. It may be sex for this person, but that's not healthy ways to base on your relationship, because that money can go, that looks can go. A person can get in an accident and now their face is mutilated or whatever. Are you still going to love them then?
Yeah.
The sex might get, they may get an accident. Now they can't have sex. Are you going to leave them then? It's like when this, like New Edition said it best. Can you stand the rain? When it really gets real.
Yeah.
What is the ingredient? Because y'all been doing it for a while. You and bro been doing it for a while. What's the ingredient? Like that 90s love music, like the older folks, the foundation that helps people be able to stand that rain. Because like now, it's like it could be a little drizzle. And people calling the quits. This is not it. I ain't with that. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm done. Like, oh, what is it that people are so quick? And I get it, self-love and self-identity, and we knowing what we want. I get that part.
Right.
But at the same time, we still are working on. We still at work. So we got ways to go. So it's like, what is it? Because my parents, before my dad died, they was married 43 years. And I can say I've never seen them physically argue or verbally argue or physically fight. Like now, what they did, they had a dynamic relationship. Now it's like when they would have a disagreement, this is how me and my brother would know, because they were like peas in a pod. And the other time they would be like this. They're inseparable. If they're playing the game, they're playing the game together. If they're watching a movie, they're watching the movie together. He wants to go fishing, they go fishing. She wants to play tennis, they play tennis. But when they have a disagreement, this was the thing. She may be on one side of the room. He may be on the other side of the room. But they didn't play that. I'm about to go out. I'm going with the boys. I'm mad. I'm going to just leave. They disagreed. They agreed to disagree.
Yeah.
You stay over there. We stay over there. So as we got older, it was kind of like he wasn't in the doghouse, but we would look at Pops like, yo, we know Mom kind of upset if he's over there by himself.
Right.
So what's that ingredient in love and healthy relationships that can help people stand the rain, stand the adversity, stand the trials? And I'm not talking about abuse.
Right.
Because life in itself can weigh on a relationship.
Yeah.
How do you hold it together then? You're being healthy, she's being healthy, but now outsource things now start coming in. Could be death in the family, could be a strain on the money, could be stress, anything to try to tear y'all apart. Besides God, what's the thing that's gonna hold y'all together?
You know what my secret is? This is my secret. I can't say it's gonna work for everybody else.
Right.
Cruz is my best friend. Through and through and through and through. Like, there's not nothing in the world that he don't know about me. Like, he know me through and through. I have not a secret. I didn't come into this relationship with secrets. I exposed everything over time as it's supposed to, as some things are time sensitive.
Right.
You can't dump it all on somebody at once. But because he is my best friend, me and him have the ability to cut up like nothing else. And we laugh all day long. Like, it ain't nothing that we just be cutting up. And that friendship and that laughter, that ability to be seen by each other, it's those moments of that kind of vulnerability that let me know that no matter what we go through, we have this to fall on.
Right.
And our relationship has been tested. And so that is the foundation right there, is that friendship to be able to fall back on and be like, I just need you to be my friend right now.
Right.
Talk to me in this realm.
Wow.
We're able to know when we need to navigate for each other in that guideline. I can tell when he needs me to be his friend and not just, as a wife, I might handle it a little different. You know what I'm saying? So we need to know how to show up for each other in which fashion is appropriate.
Wow.
Sometimes when we're going through things, I like to say this. When we were broke and we was in that 2-bedroom apartment when we first started out here, we had the best time. I swear, I told myself all the times we had been broken in our lives, it had been some of the best times of our lives. Like it had literally been some of the best times of our lives.
Right.
But as we've gotten older and we've started to accumulate different levels of responsibility and different things that are going on in our lives, you start to see how the relationship gets its different tests here and there. You add new elements here. You got new elements there. You're going to see your relationship go through some changes. And it's about being able to communicate that.
Right.
Because he's not a mind reader and neither am I. So I need to let you know what I'm feeling. I'm scared.
Right.
If you're scared about something, you need to be able to say, you know what, I'm scared. This is scary. How are we going to do this? How are we going to make this happen? How's this going to work? You got to be able to be honest in those things when that drizzle.
Right.
Because you're going to find out whether or not you guys are going to be able to make it. And if you can't, look, your parents, 40 some odd years, that's amazing.
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you what, you don't get there without going through something. And everything that you go through in that relationship with that person and you survive it and you overcome it, your bond becomes closer. You become stronger. You become more united in that. You become more one than anything.
Right.
And you start to notice that you mirror each other and you complement each other. You balance each other. He is my rock. He is my air. I appreciate him every day. And I let him know that, and I don't ever want to resent him or, any of those things. So I learned to be, grateful and not expectational. I expect him to be who he is and to do what he says he's going to do. Other than that, everything that he does for me is meeting desires for me.
Right.
And I don't live my life holding him to things. I learned to just accept it and be grateful and be thankful and to be able to be filled with love, but to communicate. We communicate all the time. Communication is key.
Right.
And you don't like the person. That's another thing. Like, how when you be dating somebody or you in a relationship with somebody and everything's good, but they do that one thing and it just bothers you. Right. It just bothers you. Like, some people have those things where it's like something just legit just tears them up on the inside.
Right. It's like people say it's grinding my gears. I'm just like, I'm to my wits end with it. Yeah.
Right. Like, there's just certain things that you just be like, you know what? I just can't get through it. I think when you're with the person that you're supposed to be with, their flaws never outweigh their positive. Like, you see the good in them so much so that the flaws they're not that big of a deal.
Right.
Like, if you're going to get mad because somebody throw their clothes on the floor all the time, like, is that really your deal breaker? Clothes?
Right.
Like, you have no idea what journey you going to go through with this person. You gotta really reevaluate. You gotta evaluate some things in your life. You know what I'm saying? About what you're willing to deal with and you're not willing to deal with. And I believe that when you know when you know, like, you just know when it's a right fit, you'll find that thing. You'll find it. And it's just like, you don't have to force it. And that's something that people are doing today in dating and relationships. They're trying to force it because everybody just wants to be with someone.
Right. Nobody wants to be by themselves. Right.
So you're just forcing these things to fit. But it don't really work. It don't work.
It don't. And that's another thing I want to tap on. I want you to touch on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Dating is not a healthy dating. Since we're talking about it ain't not being a perfect fit, is what
Mm-hmm.
brought it up to me. Dating out of comfortability,
Oh,
dating out of security, dating out of financial and stuff like that, but your heart is not in it. Let's talk about the dangers in that and what's that about?
you know, if you're dating to gain something that's you have ulterior motives about, it is dangerous because eventually it's going to be seen.
Right.
Because when you're desperate and you want something, it always finds its way to the surface. I don't know if you've seen the video that's been kind of circling around social media. I saw it on YouTube. But the girl that went out on a date with the guy, I guess she asked the guy if he could take her to McDonald's to get her daughter something to eat before they went out on a date.
Oh
The
wow.
guy said fine. He came and picked her up, picked the daughter up too, drove her to McDonald's. She had the nerve to ask the man if he would pay for her daughter's Happy Meal. Now the video's funny.
Right. All
But
right.
her thought process is what threw me through the loop. Because she was like, I don't need to date you if you can't buy my daughter a Happy Meal. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I'm getting
Right.
you guys are early on. Like you're going out on a date.
Right.
You asked the man if he could run you to go get your daughter something to eat before you went out. That is your responsibility. This man has not obligated himself to you or to your child yet. He's trying to get to know you. But
Right.
the fact that you would judge or treat that man any kind of way because he didn't buy your daughter a $4 Happy Meal says a lot about you as a woman and what you think your expectation is going to be. And she's never going to get it until she changes that mindset.
Right.
Now, yes, eventually the man, if you're dating someone and you got children, yes, that person, it is a standard and a must that they like children.
Right.
Because you got children, they ain't going nowhere. But you got to be careful about trying to fit somebody into that role when you don't know that person.
Right. That's a
And
fact.
trying to make them be responsible for that. And that's why I'm saying we're always jumping ahead.
Jumping ahead.
Nobody wants to take their time. Nobody wants to vet nothing out.
Right.
When somebody say to me, well, yeah, you've been with someone for almost 14 years. Look, it took 14 years. Like, I didn't close my eyes and was like, here we are. I had to go through, me and him both individually, we had to deal with each other. We had to deal with what we was trying to do as individuals. We had to deal with what it was trying to be like to be a unit, and to nourish that relationship. Like, it's nothing but time. So people say, well, I don't know if I'm going to live tomorrow. Well, nobody's promised tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that you just dive in head first.
Right.
So I just tell people, please take it slow. Ask the right questions. What's important to you? If you're thinking about that right now, like what's important to you, then you would ask those kind of questions when you're dating someone to see if that kind of mirrors anything that you're thinking about.
Right.
And then where are you meeting people today?
I plead the fifth. I don't know where they meeting people at. I'm gonna plead the fifth.
Because you gonna plead. if you go into the bar, you go into the club, you go into the stripper club, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and get your life together. Because I'm gonna tell you something. The last thing you need to do is be trying to interact with somebody about something like that when your inhibitions is low off of substances, and all you see when your inhibitions is low is lust.
Right. Whoa. That's real right there. That's real.
So you already are going into it with a cloud of judgment, and you're going into it with your motives all misconstrued. And I'm not saying that people don't want to do that. I get it. That's a part of relationships and all that wonderful stuff. But you need to really go in with a healthy motive about why you're dating and why you want to be in a relationship. You need to have a healthy, clear-cut idea of what you want, who you are, what you need, and what you're willing to give.
Right.
Because if you think you're going into this only on the receiving end, then, but when people show you who they are,
you gotta believe them.
just want you, but believe them. And I know we've been talking a lot about trying to date and getting to those things, but I just want to touch on right quick. Get out of relationships that are dragging you down.
We'll talk about it. Hey, everybody be mad. You go on Facebook and see it every day. Somebody's mad with somebody.
But stop doing that too. Stop telling everybody your business. I just want to throw that out there because everything that go on in your life is not everybody's business. You tell everybody your business, everybody gonna have an opinion. Now, I'm a firm believer that there are a few people in your life that you should be able to communicate with about things that are going on in your life. That is your circle, that is your right. But when you take stuff to social media to tell everybody in the world about what's going on in your relationship, shut it down. Right. Shut it down. Because really what you're doing is you're going on there for validation about what it is that happened, for somebody to tell you that you ain't crazy and they wasn't even there for the whole situation. It's always two sides to every story, and can't nobody just take yours when they don't know what else happened.
Right. Now that's a fact right there. And a lot of times people make that mistake. They go to social media with all their business and be too personal.
And then people don't want you to have a relationship. Some of them people want you to. Some people want you out of that relationship. Some people don't want y'all to be together. Some people don't want you to be happy. Some people want to sabotage what it is that you got going on.
Right. So
some people, single friends will do something. I'm not saying all single friends, but there are some single friends out there that will set you up and do not want the best for you because they ain't got nothing going on.
Nah, I feel you on that.
Company.
Let me ask you a question then. Okay, so speaking of social media and stuff like that, all right, you're building a foundation. Y'all doing your courtship. Y'all serious, all right? Or you're dating, you're connecting. Hopefully they're doing the courtship. We're together. We're gonna be together.
Okay.
How solid should you be with this person before you go publicly social media?
Okay, my question is, why does social media even matter?
That's how people are nowadays. It's like every 3 months.
But does social media, in the world of social media, knowing that you're in a relationship, make the relationship any more real?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So that there has to. My thing is that what is the motive behind it?
All right. Like, so let me.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So let me reword it. So the woman is coming to the man.
Okay.
We need to put this. Why don't you post it on your relationship? We're together. But it's 3 months in. How long after? Where she's looking at now, y'all in the early stages, she's saying, so when are you gonna put it you're in a relationship status with me on Facebook and stuff like that? Or what if it's the man pressuring the woman? So when you gonna tell the world you're single? I mean, you're in a relationship, you're not single anymore. Is that a red flag to you?
It is.
Right.
It is, because I'm a firm believer that's something that y'all should have been and talked about. Like, does that matter to you?
Right.
Like, and if it doesn't matter to you, why is the other person pressed about it? Because that becomes a them issue and not a y'all issue. Validation. And some people feel like social media is the way that, people be popping up in their DMs. This is my thing. If you don't trust me to be able to not respond or not engage in behavior that's inappropriate, if I'm in a relationship, without that, you think that if I put that up there, that's gonna stop something. Right. Like you gotta get into the mindset of why it matters. Why does it matter?
Right.
Because it's only social media. What about the people
100%.
in your everyday life that you really do got to interact with on a day-to-day basis? They know. See, and that's another thing. When it comes to stuff like that, like I said, we're not communicating, right? So
Right.
you get people that have been together 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and they ain't married. You talking about he don't want to get married. Well, did you tell him that you wanted to get married when you was dating him? You didn't say nothing. You thought that he was just going to be like, one day he was going to pop up and ask you to marry him. He may have never wanted to get married. And that's usually you'll see that happen. Well, she know I don't want to get married, and I ain't never gonna get married. I'll be with her till the day we die. But it's something about marriage. And, but it could be for him that his parents weren't married, or maybe his parents divorced, or maybe he saw something that really, has changed how he views marriage. I've heard
Right.
people say marriage is like a commitment that is just, if I do it, I so want to do it right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't want to play with it. Right.
Your timeline and his timeline ain't always gonna be the same timeline. For women, maybe 2, 3 years is cool. But again, if you talked about it instead of assuming, you wouldn't be 9 years into a relationship without being married. You see what I'm saying? So we're not doing the communicating. We're not holding our standards in place. We're not doing the things that we should have healthily done in order to put us in the realm to set us up for success. Now, my point with that is, after every relationship, you should learn something. It doesn't work out. Constantly, it's time for you to reevaluate some things in your life about yourself, about what you want, where you're going, what you need. So that way, and take some time to heal. And then, when you're ready, jump back out there. Or really assess, like I said, where you picking people up at. The only people that care about social media, to me, in relationships is the people that are surface level.
Wow.
Because I don't need social media or no one on social media to validate whether or not I got a healthy relationship with my husband.
Right.
People just want to know if you married or in a relationship because they know. But if you put all your piece of information on the world on social media, then they're going to be all in your business.
Right. Right.
See, I don't get on social media like that. I'm just going to be honest. I'm working on, I'm working on a project, to be able to bring this kind of thing, full-fledged to people. Right. But social media and me displaying, all of my, I've been there and I've done that before.
Right. Dangerous. That's dangerous too.
It's dangerous. And not only that, when you go back and you flip-flopping and you doing this, that, and other people looking at you like you crazy.
Right.
Now everybody got an opinion, and you upset that they got an opinion, but you didn't let them have an opinion.
Let them have an opinion.
You don't want people to have an opinion. Don't give them the opportunity to have something to say. Is my point.
Right. No, that's a powerful thing right there. Don't give them the power. It's kind of like making a post, and then it's like, what's on your mind? You put it out there. Now people start chiming in. Now you get offended because y'all are trying to be in my business. We wouldn't know what's going on if you didn't put it on the page. But like you said, social media and the validation, that also comes from a place of being damaged. It's like you have to be validated all the time, where it's like you're not comfortable in knowing this, me and you together, that's not enough. Then what am I lacking inside of me that I feel like social media is going to fill a void?
So, and I think social media fills voids because people don't have to be honest.
That's a fact.
Yeah. And it can destroy a relationship because social media is a double-edged sword if you really think about it.
He talking about, do we want to be famous? Buy some followers so we get
no, I'm okay. I ain't for nobody to do nothing over here.
Right.
But I think social media is a double-edged sword because it can be a wonderful it can be used as a wonderful platform.
Right.
It really can, to share information, to build certain brands and businesses, and to just really do dynamic things. But it also has become a look at me, look at me, look at me.
Right.
Look how I'm living. Look at where I'm going. Look
Right.
at what I'm doing. So everybody's looking at everybody else and like, well, my life ain't like this, and it ain't like that, and this ain't like this. So you're already feeding into your insecurity. So what these other people do is that they start building, this false image about themselves that they got to sell to the social media land. And now
Right.
they start to believe it so much because now they believe the lie that they selling, that they lost in who they are completely. And then you want to broadcast all of your business because you feel like these people are your genuine friends. You delusional.
Right.
You're delusional. They're not your friends. You don't know these people tangibly. You may
Right.
know a handful of them, but if you got thousands and thousands of followers, you don't know all them people. Even if you got 800 followers,
You don't know
look,
800 people. Right.
you don't know all, like, come on, like it's not a realistic thing. It may
Right.
be a surface level. I may have saw you out, you was there and I was there, and hey, okay, I add you, whatever. But like, to know somebody you don't.
Right.
And social media, people want to, I think a lot of times too, what she said about validation is people not only want the validation of the relationship post, but they want the approval of what the other person looks like.
Wow.
People want to say, look at what I got.
Right.
Look who I'm dating. People want to be coveted.
Right.
People want to be put on pedestals. People want that thing. And it's like, what are you willing to lose for? Because you're gonna lose something.
You're gonna lose something, yeah.
And if you really had a real relationship, you wouldn't give it to the world, because some things are sacred.
Right. Right.
I would never give my relationship with my husband to the world. For what?
It's yours, right? It's
If you get the opportunity to see us interacting, then you get an opportunity. That means you're in our circle, and
right.
that we trust to let you into that circle. But for me to give it to the world isn't worthy of that.
Right. You just said a thing right there.
You gotta know that the world's not worthy of that. And then also, what are you willing? You're willing to risk the turmoil and the chaos and the energy that's going to come back from the world
Right.
into that very relationship, and such as she was saying, destroying the relationship, creating doubt, doing things that are going to create chaos. So you open the doors for it, you're going to get exactly what you let in.
Wow. And that's real right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the people make this mistake every day because, like, kind of like we was talking about last time, keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
And almost because they want, like you said, to feel a quick validation that I'm somebody. Look at what I got.
Mm-hmm.
Or look at his shoes. Or we went to the beach. Or we went to, because it's like you're overcompensating something.
Because everybody's narcissist now. Right. We are breeding the highest rate number of narcissism that I've ever seen. And I say this. You see people constantly taking selfies of themselves and posting them, selfie after selfie after selfie after selfie.
Right.
How self-obsessed have you become? You can't have a relationship with nobody else when you are that self-absorbed. Because relationships are about selflessness.
Right.
So how do you have a relationship if you're all self-consuming?
Right. Let's talk about that real quick. Because, all right, I'm in the industry, right? So everybody in the industry, they have this persona. They have these images, male and female.
Okay.
They have these images that they have to keep. You just said a powerful thing right there. So a lot of them, when I talk to them, and it's like we're in the industry off camera. Like, yo, we're in the industry, I ain't dating. Because like you said, it's like, yo, it's so hard to date in the industry, whatever the reason. So when we talk about image or we talk about validation or narcissism, where it's like we have to be, you said you can't be that caught up in yourself and with somebody at the same
Mhm.
time. Let's break down on that. So it's like, yo, when these artists are saying, or these people in the industry are saying, yo, I don't date because I'm in the industry, because there's so much that goes into being me. Is that work wise, or is it like, yo, I'm so in love with me, I have to keep up my image so much, I don't have time to link with anybody else? What's really going on?
That's kind of a double-edged sword in itself. Because we all know that whatever image you present when you come out is the image you are going to carry for the entire duration of your career.
Right.
So if you are a sex symbol, that's what you're going to be until your career is fun. Until your career comes to a closure, that's the image. You could probably date behind the scenes,
Right.
but I mean, you come in public with the relationship would be a little difficult depending on how early it is in your career and your brand.
Right.
Because they need you to be the image of single, because if you're selling sex, unfortunately, you're selling the fantasy.
Right.
Nobody wants the fantasy when the fantasy is attached to something.
Wow.
I mean, you think about how long Jay-Z and Beyonce, prime example, were together.
Right.
And everybody kind of knew it, but they didn't really know it because they hadn't really confirmed it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And then when they did confirm it, they still keep that portrait very personal, other than what they want to show. I think now they show more because they're older and they're really more settled in their careers.
Right.
But you think early on how much they tried to separate that
True.
because of the image. So my thing is this. This is a question I would ask people who are in those kind of situations and building those kind of brands. Why do you want your image to be so much further than who you truly are? Because if you're selling a lie,
Right.
how long do you hold that up till you become delusional, or the two become crisscrossed and you start to live what it is that you're promoting?
And lose
Because
yourself.
those two can only stay separate for so long.
And lose yourself because of who you're pretending to be, or this image that you're perpetuating.
Right.
And you lose
Versus
reality.
actors, actors are a little bit different because they play a lot of different roles. So it's a one job role. I was this character today, but they go home knowing that they actually just played a role. That's exactly what that was.
Wow.
But when you're in the industry and you're rapping, or you're doing music, that industry, that image is the career.
Right.
It's not a separate identity like acting.
Right.
Johnny Depp was Captain Jack Black, but he was also, Crybaby and Crybaby. You know what I'm saying? But then he went home and put his hat up, and when you see him in pictures, he just Johnny Depp doing whatever Johnny Depp do.
Right. And that's the
But
thing.
if you go out there and you see Future has to be exactly who Future say he gonna be. Bobby Shmurda, Kim Kardashian got to be Kim Kardashian all the time.
Wow.
That's her image. That's what she done sold. Like,
Right.
you have to be the brand that you've created, and people don't just want that on set. They want that off of the record too. When you come out in public, I want you to be exactly who you was on the record, because that's what you promoted. You
Right.
get what I'm
That's how
saying?
you said you was. Yeah. So if you came in with a backflip, I want you to backflip every time you come in the room.
Every time you come in the room. So my question is, if that's the thing I don't like about music today, is music doesn't perpetuate anything real as much as it used to, at least mainstream music. I think that, there are a lot of women that are extremely talented, but they choose to make the sexual aspect more of a brand to their music than their actual music letting it speak for itself.
Right.
And that's something that's going to ride with you. And because you're selling sex and you're selling the image, that shelf life doesn't last long, because it's only going to last as long as the beauty lasts attached to it. So once your shelf life with that ends, this was the duration of your career. That's what you're going to be remembered for. I mean, hell, we look at Lil Kim and what she done did to her body, and she ain't been in the industry in how long? I mean, she still does a little whatever behind the scenes, but
Right.
look at what she's still working on herself,
Right.
transforming to whatever. I don't know what she is now. She didn't took herself so far gone, but she still promotes that same image when you see her at events and things like that. She's still trying to promote Lil Kim.
Wow. Wow. And that's the thing, getting stuck in that. And it's hard to grow. It's hard to change. And a lot of times it's just like social media in a sense. So it's
Mhm,
like, so when you're in the industry and on social media, it's almost like a double-edged sword. It's like you got social media you're fighting against. You got the industry that you're fighting against. But the key thing that you said is being true to yourself.
mhm,
So you have some people that don't mind sharing their vulnerabilities. You don't have some people that don't mind, yo, this is who I am. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you're living this exaggerated lifestyle
mhm,
that's not a reality. And then in the unfortunate side, on the other side of the fence, is you have people watching these people,
mhm,
looking up to these people that's trying to hold regular everyday people
mhm,
to an exaggerated lifestyle expectation. That's
mhm.
never going to happen.
What is it? Life imitating art?
Life imitating art.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's gotten out of control. So when you see those things, you know, you got to think about how that's going to change a person's standards and boundaries and what their perceptions are on dating. You know, I guess it's not a one size fits all for every person, depending on what it is that or multifaceted of what you are got going on in your life. But this is my biggest thing. I think that people should be themselves all the time. I don't
Right.
think that there's any reason to ever be anybody else. I think that you should stay true to yourself, stay true to your story, stay true to your growth, and people will appreciate that because it's authentic. We live in a world today where we lack so much authenticity that people aren't real with themselves anymore. They're not real with anybody else. So I think when people are authentic, it's like a breath of fresh air. And I think we need more of that. And I think relationships would thrive more if people would be more authenticated. Yes. And prayers do go up to DMX. I know he overdosed today. He's in critical condition.
Yeah, definitely praying for the
You
dog.
know, I
Yeah. Right.
I say that's another brother that's, we talk about the music industry, that's another industry that has his journey in that
Right.
um has led to a lot of things, a lot of mental issues. He's been paranoid about some stuff. We know that he's a
Right.
substance abuser. I don't think the industry is the direct cause. I do think that it's a lot of stressors that contributed to that. I
Right.
think there's a lot of trauma in areas in his life that he was battling before he went in, and I think the industry exploited some of that.
Right. And that's what I was gonna say. Is like I seen in Tupac's movie, his mother told him they give you exactly what you want to
Hmm.
destroy yourself.
Oh yeah.
So with DMX, it's kind of like on one hand, it's like he's complex. It's like he's one of those stories where it's like bittersweet, like Marvin Gaye and the certain singers. Is like when you hear their story, it's
Hmm.
like they brought the world great music. They did great things, but it's like the suffering they were going through, the drug abuse they were going through, the
Hmm.
depression they were going through that you never seen.
Hmm.
It was through their pain they made these great works. But the
Hmm.
thing with DMX is like even in the midst of his struggles, he
Hmm.
always, gave God glory and he always was transparent about
Hmm.
what he was going through. And it's like
Right.
so his fight, it seemed like the more he take 5 steps, it seemed
Hmm.
like situations to push him back 10. He get back 10, he go back 20. It's
Hmm.
like every time this is it, DMX is gonna break through. Something else happens. Whether it's supernatural forces, whether it's people working against him or him working against himself. However
Hmm.
the case may be, it's those that have the greater purposes that go through the most. And it's like when you try, so even like the relationship that's authentic,
Hmm.
there's no Grammys, there's no big celebrations, there's no glory in that. It's glory in the okay, yo, we up here pretending, the actresses, the actors, we're pretending this lifestyle. You get the following, you get the parade, you get the celebrity of it. So it's like it's backwards. It's kind of like the realer you are,
Mm-hmm.
the less connected people are, as far as like the masses. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like the more blown up out of proportion is, the more exaggerated it is. They glorify that. They cling to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a programming that we know is like a programming or a mindset, because it's like, if we can keep you lower down here, you never reach your potential.
Right.
So with DMX, it's kind of like when you hear the story and you read the articles, it's like with everything that he went through, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
the last couple of performances or things that I see, I still hear him mentioning God. One of the last videos I seen last week,
Mm-hmm.
he was saying that no matter what you go through, God will bring you out. It's only
Amen.
God that can bring you out. And if God don't bring you out,
Mm-hmm.
then it wasn't his will. But it's like he was saying, yo, I'ma go one day. I just seen a video this week. He was
Okay.
just in a live performance, and he said, one day I'm gonna go, but it'll be when the Lord's ready for me. It won't be by the streets. It won't be by this. It won't be by that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be because God called me back. And
Right.
I'm looking and I'm like, yo, like DMX be spitting some real, but it's like then you see his humanity, his other
Mm-hmm.
side. You seeing this artist, but now you see the struggle. With the man comes the substance abuse. With the man comes the depression. With the man side comes
Mm-hmm.
the mentality. I mean, the mental issues going on. But as a public, why do we wait to situations like now? We see it out of control. Why is it when in the black community we wait till it boom, it explodes, and now we're concerned when we see them sliding down the slope?
Okay. Rephrase the question from one time. One more time.
I was saying with black people, why is it that we see somebody slipping, like they may be, going through some things? I would say
Mm-hmm.
we don't have massive people saying, "Yo, let's pray for this person. Let's intercede for them. Let's go check on such and such and such," because we know they're going through. Why is it once the car explodes, now everybody stops and now they have our attention?
I don't think necessarily everybody stops. Especially like in these type of situations. Because we see it happening, but everybody's got their own stuff going on.
Right.
We are a culture that does not know how to bind together unless it is tragic. Somebody gets killed by the police, we will band together in a heartbeat.
Right.
We want to right. It's some of that statement was bittersweet, but we only want to come together when it's injustice.
Right.
When it's something that we can all, that ain't right. If it's somebody else that's doing it to us, it's a problem. But we never want to call out on each other when we're doing it to ourselves.
Right.
We don't want to see each other healthy, but we don't want to let nobody else be accountable for destroying us. And that is a mentality that has to change within our culture.
Right.
We can't, we gotta support and uplift and try to help direct as much of each other as we can to show that we support each other. But a lot of times we're a culture that's used to using one another. We're taught to abuse one another. We got colorism inside of our communities that we're still trying to deal with and fix, that I don't even understand. I think that we're all beautiful at all shades and
Right.
all sizes, but music has perpetuated colorism from our own brothers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We have, Black women in the industry who have bleached their skin. So we're constantly perpetuating and sending a message that continues to perpetuate some of the things that go on within our culture that continue to tear us down.
Right.
Rappers, rap music, I get that. My husband always says music has to evolve. He says it's always got to evolve.
Right.
But we continue to perpetuate the violence in music.
Right.
Not saying that, we don't understand, what you're trying to say and rap and hip hop and all of that. But at what point do we stop preaching music that's going to continue to tear our communities apart instead of, preaching and putting music out that's actually going to build and bring us together. There's only a couple real conscious rappers that I'm aware. And Rhapsody, the black girl, I love her to death. I love her as a conscious rapper. I love her to death.
Right.
But it's like we have a couple, but we don't have enough that's really pushing the envelope and really, they're getting enough attention and, events being put together for stuff like that. We're not seeing that. So, that takes a culture of people who want to be in leadership positions within the culture that really, have the means to do it as far as the drive. When I say the means, the drive.
Right.
And to really go about it and make it happen.
Right.
Not people like Dr. Umar Johnson that keep talking and ain't produce nothing. You know what I'm saying? Right. But we are in charge of our culture, and we need leaders to come out and to educate us and to, try to help us heal and bridge some of these gaps. But at the end of the day, if our people don't want to do that, then we also have to accept where we're limited, because this is something that's been going on for decades. You start to program a culture over and over and over and over again, and we've been really programmed since, I say after slavery ended, even before slavery ended. There's been a lot of generational programming, so media programming that you're dealing with. So I think that it just takes a bunch of people with the right compassion, the right resources, and the right motivation to really go ahead and try to redirect a culture as best as they can. But you're fighting now against the social media powers that be and the influence of that. So that's, something that you have to combat now that you wouldn't have had to combat back then.
That's true indeed. And it's kind of like in the early stages, speaking from the hip hop side of things, it's kind of like the early days of hip hop, when hip hop was first established, where it was like you had to be in the know to get invited. You had to be in the know to know who was doing what, or, these concerts where it's like rap, the name rap. We have, me and your husband, we have these conversations all the time, because like rap is just a wide spectrum rap. Hip hop, conscious music and stuff like that. When we think of rap, even in the 90s, the 2000s, even with the violence that was in the music, it was kind of both sides of the story. It wasn't like one side glorified, like, yo, this was going to happen. Go out here. You got both sides. Like, okay, you go out here, but brother's dying. You go out here, but brother's going to prison. You go out here, everybody that went to prison won't bad. You go out here, you could be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So you was getting all these. Well, now it's like everything, like you said, with the social media, with the microwave world we living in, everything is glorified. Pop pills, do it up or do it down at the same time. Bust your heart open. Now we have these situations, heart attacks. And now it's like, whoa, but this is what the media is perpetuating. No knock to DMX. But it's like, this is what they're telling our children. This is what they're telling our brothers. This is what they're telling our people. Take an upper, do a downer at the same time. Now drink some liquor on top of that. And now you fall into an old overdose. So now you fall into a heart attack. Now you fall into an aneurysm. And it's like they're pumping this on loudspeakers. They're pumping this like the bullhorns. They're pumping this on your cell phones. They're pumping this on your TV. They're pumping this in your car. So it's like everywhere you go. But then, like you said, the substance of the artists that are trying to do a message, they're far in between. You have the Kendricks, you have the Rhapsodies, you have the J. Coles. But then on the indie scene, you have so many millions of leaders in their communities, in their neighborhoods, and that's lifting their voice. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, it's no stages for them. It's no platforms. It's no where they can get the exposure that they need. So that's why I took it back to the early days of hip hop. So it's like, it's little pockets. So it's like, you got these underground, you got these speakeasy, kind of how they used to do the poetry, where the lyricists are. But the mainstream rap now is a whole nother thing. That's the matrix. Where it's like, over here's the programming. So then hip hop as a whole takes the hit. And it was, I'm gonna use Cardi as an example. And it was like, this is when the WAP came out. And everybody was coming at Cardi. And there's like 2 videos I seen with Cardi that made me respect Cardi even more. And it's like, that's when I realized, like, okay, yo, like, At first, it's like, you could do certain things just to get money. And it's like, that's
Mhm.
what you on, you do that, but I may lose respect for you. But get
Right.
your money. Get your money, because that's the world we live in. Get your money, get
Right.
your money. That's what everybody's saying, but the way everybody's doing it, I don't have to agree with. Get your
Right.
money, but I don't have to agree with the way you get your
Right.
money. So Cardi B, she was doing a concert. This one particular first one I'm going to speak on. She
Okay.
was in front of it was like a bunch of college girls and high school women,
Mm-hmm.
and it was packed. And she was
Okay.
performing. As she's performing, she stopped the music. And she was like, yo, all y'all girls, y'all look at me like I'm a celebrity, that I'm somebody to look up to, this, that, and the third. She was like, yo, where y'all at in y'all life, you're at a crossroad where you can, make the right decision, make the wrong decisions. Long story
Mm-hmm.
short, the point of what she was saying was, I'm a celebrity, but I have to pay somebody to handle my money. I'm a celebrity, but I have to pay somebody to handle my schedule. I'm a celebrity. I have to pay people to keep me to do things that if I would have been disciplined or put the work in at your age, I would have been able to do myself. So she was like, don't look at the money. Look at the discipline and going to finish school and getting the education and the knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
so that you're not up here. You don't want to be rich with money, and then you don't even know you have to hire somebody to count your money for you. And when I look at Cardi from Love and Hip Hop and her music,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yo, I would think like, yo, okay, so she's just out for the money. But when she said that, she dropped the jewel. Like, yo, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, boom, I know what I'm doing. I ain't
Right.
have no other choice. That's kind of like the person that was on the corner, and they telling that, yo, I was on the corner, but you don't have to be out here.
Right.
Go to school, go play ball. So when she did that, I was like, yo, okay, she's kind of different. So then it
Mm-hmm.
was later on when the WAP came out, and they tried to corner her in a corner, and it was like interview, and they were like coming at her. They were, yo, you all you sex side, the sex, the sex, the sex, the sex. And she said a powerful thing. And she was like, okay, y'all coming at me right now. And it was not the black people. These were the reporters. These was the
Okay.
money people. Because
Okay.
this is when she was speaking out against Trump and all types of things. So she had
Right.
some people that was coming against her. But it was like, okay, so y'all target me. She was like, my records go number one every time. Doom, 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 all these sales every time I drop. So like my
Mm-hmm.
fan base. But then she was like, y'all ask me why I don't do more conscious music, why I don't do more positive records, why I don't do these. Then she named Rhapsody and like 4 other female artists
Mm-hmm.
and said, y'all won't even play them on y'all radio stations. Y'all won't even put them on your platform. This is what I listen to. This is Cardi B.
Mm-hmm.
She said, this is what I listen to. But on y'all platforms where y'all invite us to come up here and do these interviews, and you make money off of the advertisers because we're up here, you
Mm-hmm.
don't play these women. They don't make sales because y'all don't give them the endorsement. Y'all don't sponsor them or give them the promotion to make the sales that I'm making. And now we stand on in front of the camera and you say, well, why don't I make music like them?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I make music like them when they already make music like them? When are y'all going to play their music? And when I heard her say that,
Mm-hmm.
I said, wait a minute, yo. Like, yo, okay, everything that I see about her, I get. She's selling records.
Right.
She's supporting them. But it's like the fact that even in those situations, I made a post one time and I said, surround yourself with people that'll bring up your name in a room full of opportunities. Now, she's on a major platform
Mm-hmm.
where these women would never go. Their names would never be brought up. And
Mm-hmm.
they're saying, yo, why are you not making more positive music for women? She dropped 5 MCs, lyrical women,
Mm-hmm.
on that platform and said, why aren't y'all supporting them?
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean? So when I say that, it's like, now she just put their name on a platform where the system don't want their name. It's like the
Right.
Nas's and stuff like that. It's like, no, we don't want you to talk, or Common or Talib. We don't want you to bring up them. Let's stick with Future. Let's stick with the Waynes. Let's stick with these guys because
Right.
they're promoting our message. Oh no, they're talking real. We don't want that. And she kind of exposed it and flipped it back on them
Right.
and said, why are y'all asking me when it's women that's doing that. And she was like, at the same time, I buy their records. But y'all don't even play. So if you kind of asking me to commit career suicide. So it's like if I'm up here and I'm dropping and y'all not supporting, that's like, okay, we're selling chocolate chips. They want you to sell brownies, but nobody wants brownies. You're selling chocolate chips. You're the highest chocolate chip distributor. And you say, yo, everybody don't need to eat chocolate chips. There's brownies out there. These oatmeal raisins are good. In that sense. So it was like with Cardi, when she said that, it's like she understands, like, okay, I do this for music. But in her works, when I'm seeing her in these videos and her interacting with people, she's dropping knowledge. So from the outside looking in, I would have never got that off of Cardi. So I seen the video. So in that sense, I was saying I got respect for her in that sense. And a lot of these underground artists, it's the same situation. It's like they should be on the radio. Super talent. But because you won't wear a dress, because you won't kiss a man, because you won't do this, or because you won't do this video, you'll never make it to those platforms.
No.
And it's like, and a lot of people, they compromise because they want the big stage.
Right. But the idea is to promote and sell to make you think that you will.
Right.
And that's why social media is so powerful within itself. I mean, when you start talking about it on this realm, is to make people believe that they have a shot, to make people believe that they have the opportunity to influence and to be on those platforms. And, you're chosen to be in those platforms. And, as much as I could respect, Cardi B's statements, and I have heard her make some statements offline, I respect the statements,
but she got to put the
but you're afraid to go against the grain. So it lets me know that you are driven. You are driven by something, because you're acknowledging that there needs to be a change, but you don't want to be part of the change. But you want to be a part of the destruction as far as the music, because you get all these artists that will come out and say, we need to, don't look at me, I'm not a role model. I just make music. You can't do that. You have to be accountable for what you put into the universe. Period. Point blank. You are. Yes, getting a lot of backlash for the role that he's playing in P Valley. But you can't be afraid to go against the grain. See, that's when we start talking about the culture. Here's the thing about the culture, and I'm gonna say something people ain't gonna like.
Nah, keep it real. We wanted to keep it real. This is the proof is
in
in the pudding.
I know we kind of flip topics on y'all a little bit. But our culture is in crisis. We are a culture in crisis, and we have been in crisis. And I get upset about the culture. My husband hears me say this all the time. I get upset about the culture because the culture gave the culture away.
Right.
The culture gave the culture away, and now the culture belongs to the world. Culture don't belong to us. It's not exclusive to us. No. The one identity that we had built for ourselves, since we then came over here, that's a whole other conversation, but since we came over here, the one bubble that we have built for ourselves, an identity struggle, it says something about us, our pain, our thing, just who we are, the way we dress, the way we talk, the music that we make, a cultural thing. You have given it to the world. The world now owns it. The people who own it don't look like me and you.
No, not at all.
And the people that they want to put in those positions are unfortunately the people that look like us, who are super broken, come from super broken homes, that are going to super do whatever it is that they want them to do because they've had nothing.
Right.
And then we don't want to build each other or support each other because we got so much self-hatred and things that are going on within our own traumas that we've been dealt with in a culture. You know what I'm saying? That we don't know how to help one another. We don't know how to do that.
Right.
And then we will support, our men calling our women all kinds of names and all kinds of vile things.
Right.
And we will support our women, coming out half naked and showing that to our youth so that the perpetuation of the stereotypes continue to be manifested in the way that they are.
Right.
So I think that we are a culture in crisis. And that we are running out of people who really have the best heart and intentions for our culture. We as the people decide what we make hot. Unfortunately, like my husband like to say, at this point, we may be too far gone in the game. That you may be too far gone in the game for you to be able to ever really make that kind of change and impact and influence. And a lot of that too, I believe, is spiritual within itself. But I say this, it's just like Sambo. They use Sambo to beat Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom wouldn't beat the other slaves. So they had Sambo beat him until Sambo eventually killed him. But they use other people that look just like you to Sambo you into the same mindset that you're already in, to keep you broken and to keep you thinking that you can achieve and reach. But you can't even be a part of a culture that you are naturally a part of. But you can let other people into the culture of different races that can come in and Cardi B can, people can get mad at me when I say this, but Cardi B, you can't say the N-word.
No.
You're not, she's not black. She's Hispanic. She's 100% Hispanic.
Right.
What's the other lady? What is it? Is the Azalea?
She's definitely not. I think she's Australian.
Yeah, but my thing is, like, these are the people that we let into the culture. So when you start letting other people come into the culture, you starting to let your culture get tainted.
That's the same one. Hold on. There you go. Wait. All right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's sad because we've been programmed to the, our hair ain't authentic. You know what I'm saying? Our hair isn't good. We need to wear lashes and we need makeup and we need this and we need to look like that. But in the meantime, you got Kim Kardashian and all the other part of the culture folks trying to look more and more dark skinned. So it's like, at some point, we as a people gotta be willing to take the veil off your eyes and really see things for what it is. But we allow the industry to do what it continues to do because we are too afraid to say, you know what, I don't accept that. And I'm not gonna let my kids listen to that. And we're not supporting this. And we're not gonna support that.
Right.
But see, everybody, it feeds into, this is the thing too. The music today and where the culture's at today, it just feeds into everything that's wrong. So it just enables people to continue to live the way they want to live because it's constantly reinforced.
Right.
Why do I gotta change when this is what it is? Just like in relationships, you know what I'm saying? Cardi B with Offset buying Birkin bags and buying cars, but he can go sleep around on them, and have a baby with somebody else, and she accepts it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not okay.
Right.
But you see what we accept.
Right.
We tolerate it.
Right.
So once you open the door to toleration, you open up the door for everything else.
Disrespect, all that stuff.
That's why people got mad at me. There was some people that got mad at me when we had talked about gay marriage, and I said I don't have nothing against nobody for their lifestyle. They live the way they want to live. That's on you.
Right.
I don't have to answer for it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But if you open the door to start letting people of same sex get married to same sex, then you're gonna have your pedophiles knocking on the door saying, hey, well, what about us? We can't control our lust for children, and it's natural, and why can't we be in relationships? Now you got people out here marrying dogs and bestiality. You open the door for something, you open the door for everything. So you have to be careful of what you've done. And we have unfortunately sold our culture out, and we will never get it back. Hip hop is on every commercial that come on, got a hip hop beat behind it.
Right.
It's everywhere.
Wow.
And then they 360 deal these people and whatever else they do to these people that make pennies on the money, make pennies on the work that they have created. If some of them have even wrote it, because at this point, we're just gonna leave it alone. You shouldn't be in rap if you couldn't write your own lyrics.
Right.
That used to be the pride of being an MC, was being a lyricist.
Right.
Now you got all these ghostwriters. And then you got the emo rappers. I don't even know what they be talking about. Juice World. I know he passed, but you know that whole little dark thing. You
Right.
know, you got Lil Nas X out here selling Satan shoes. You know, the culture just wrong, man. It's just wrong. Like this is a topic that we can talk about all by ourselves and just
Right.
but the culture really is in crisis, and the people that they put in the position, to represent for the culture is unfortunately broken, and they are manipulated and they are easily damaged. They're already damaged and they're easily manipulated, and they know that because they don't want anybody else that's, like our generation before that.
Wow.
And so, the culture will never go back. But you can't on one hand say support something, but you yourself acknowledge is needed.
But you
You
won't do
acknowledge that you're damaging society. You acknowledge, because you're telling women don't cook, don't clean, don't be women, don't be nurturers. Just, all you need is the WAP. Now they follow you,
it. Right.
but you can't be like, oh, but you know what we need. But I'm not going to do that because I'm going to lose this check. Can't have it both ways. You stand for something or you fall for everything. It's one or the other. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You gotta. That's why I say self-identity is so important, so that you can't waver. If you really got a good identity, you'll die for what you believe in. I believe that wholeheartedly. Like, you ain't gonna waver for nothing.
Right. And
There
that's
gotta
the
be
thing.
some authenticity about you.
That's the thing right there. Authenticity, and then having a standard, because that's
Mm-hmm.
even like the flip side of that. I see a lot of times men that's like
Mm-hmm.
they may be low esteem, or they may be broken. They may be
Mm-hmm.
damaged. They may have a little bit of money. Now they target on females that's come from hard lives, or females
Yeah.
that's in a hard spot. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, I'm going to take care of everything. You don't have to pay nothing,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to treat you like hell. I'm not going to respect you. It's a difference in providing, but it's like these guys target on women
Mm-hmm.
that's in a jam spot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that real quick.
I think it is the idea to control.
Right.
It's all about control. Wanting to feel in control and to feel like they have power. So for some odd reason, they haven't had power. So they need power. They need to have that control. So if I can control this, then, everything works the way I want it to work. It's not a partnership. It just works the way I want it to work.
Right.
So you have to be careful with that, because they're not really ready to be in a super vulnerable relationship. They're just willing to give you what you need, a little bit of what you need to get what they want, and to be able to control that dynamic.
Right.
And there's a lot of that. There I believe that there is a lot of that too. And you see that primarily with younger girls who marry older men.
Right.
Not in all cases, but you do see that more primarily in women who date younger men. I mean older men.
Right.
But it is a power trip.
Right.
They know you want status. You're gonna pay for that status. And I'm not saying, that I don't think that people, nobody's ever going to be 100% equal in a relationship when it comes to finances.
Right.
You have that where somebody is always going to make more money than another person in some instances. So that may flip flop back and forth. But relationships are about partnerships. It's about trust.
Right.
And we're such an untrusting. People are so untrusting because of past things that they have been through. But if they were actually doing the steps appropriately, like we said earlier, you wouldn't find yourself in those situations.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And for women, my thing is, for men and women to continue to focus on their growth.
Right.
Continue to focus on your growth. If you want to get an education, get an education. You got a business idea that you want to do, go ahead and do it. Like, being in a relationship does not mean conforming to the identity of the other person and making that person the center of your universe. Because when you make somebody else the center of your universe, everything revolves around that person, that you don't know how to breathe, move, navigate, or anything without that person, which means you have taken on the identity of the relationship.
Right.
That's not okay. A relationship should not be your identity.
Right. Wow.
It should be something that you may desire, but it should not be something that becomes your identity.
Right.
And that's what we see, and that's what you see a lot of when you see trauma relationships.
Right.
Of the codependency, maybe moving in together too soon. Right. Making decisions like they would if they were a year in versus, making these decisions 2 months in, 3 months in. You see what I'm saying? Right. Like, you gotta, to avoid traumatic relationships is to really vet a person. You'll hear people say, I've been with somebody for 8, 9 years and then something happened and I ain't even know. It's like, well, did you really ever get to my biggest thing is, what is the relationship like when you're in the relationship? And that's what I talk to people about. Like when we talk about relationships, right, is on your everyday basis. Like, what do y'all talk about? What are y'all goals? Like, do y'all have relationship goals? Like what? And people might say, not really. And I'll be like, relationship goals. Like, do you take a vacation once a year? Do you want to buy a house in 4 to 5 years? Have you talked about, an IRA, a 401k? What does that look like? Relationship goals, long term. What is it going to take to sustain you? What is it that you're trying to do? You got some couples that say, man, when they retire, they selling their house and they just going to travel the whole world. That's their relationship goal. That's one of their goals. Right. But the idea is, if you're not communicating, and when I say relationship, there's so many things that you could talk about. Now, I'm not going to say that we don't need space in relationships, because we do need space. Right. And you got to be willing to have that too, a healthy amount of space. Right. Take a corner to go upstairs, go downstairs, do your thing, let them do their thing. They won't go outside with their friends, let them go outside with their friends. Right. Shouldn't nobody have that kind of insecurity where can't nobody breathe unless y'all on top of each other. You shouldn't, because that's not okay. That's not healthy. Right. to be together all the time is really is to be a very, it's unhealthy. It's really unhealthy. And you got people that are like that. I love my husband. I love him to death. But all day, every day, he been and drove me crazy. Right. I've been and drove him crazy, one of the two. Right. And he'll let me know when he crazy, because he gonna take him a break. Oh, for real. And look, we don't say nothing to each other about it. He just go to his space in the house. I go to my space, and we fine. Right. I might not see him for a couple hours. He come downstairs and say, hey. Right. But it's like, you got to have healthy space, but you do got to be communicating. And I think people today are in relationships for the sake of being with people, like we said, because they're afraid to be alone. But also, I think one of the biggest barriers is that people are with people because they like the way that they make them feel. Right. Not necessarily, and people fall in love with potential too soon. Stop falling in love with potential and saying, this person has the ability to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Potential is great, honey. But potential is not right now, boo-boo. It's not. You be living with somebody on potential. They got potential, ain't did nothing in 15 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to live in the now. You got to live in what you see right now. This is what's going on right now. You can't bank on 15 years later of potential. He had a potential to be a physicist, and he don't want to be a physicist. He never, you know what I'm saying? He got a potential to be an engineer. He don't want to do that. Right. He want to run the streets all day and make rap videos. Wow. But because of the potential.
He wanted his potential. He wanted to be the best gamer this summer.
So I think we fall in love with the idea of what people can be, instead of seeing people for who they are. Right. And my thing is, love is a choice. I'm going to throw that out there right now. Love is a choice. You didn't just miraculously fall in love with nobody. Okay. You opened yourself up to the possibility to feel those feelings. So now that you open the door for that, you've made the choice to love somebody. Because when you're in a relationship with someone and things aren't going that great and you're not that happy and maybe that made you mad, you made the choice to love them that day anyway, even if you're angry. Wow. So we have this misconstrued idea that, it just happened. Right. It didn't just happen. I mean, they be lying to themselves. Sion, they be lying to themselves out here in the streets now. I try to tell you.
Right out in the street. That's what I was about to say. So what about the one that love you today? They in love this month. Next month, status is I hate men for a month. Third month, I love my new boo. So it's been 6 I love yous in 7 months. What's
So
really going
they're in love with the idea of being in love.
right?
Infatuated with being in love. You love the idea of what love embodies and what it represents. But you really have a misconstrued idea of that. Because if you did, you wouldn't throw that word around loosely at all. Somebody tell me they love me too fast, it's a little bit of a scary thing right there.
Right. Because
I
it's
mean,
a
really,
lot.
when you think about it, it is. It is. And I'm not going to sit there and say, people don't necessarily feel that way, because somebody legit might feel that way, right?
Right.
That's it. They're searching. They're searching.
Right.
Somebody might say, I love you, and you be worried, right? Scared. And you be looking like, ooh, child. Yes. That's nice. Or you might say, you know what, that's nice and I appreciate that. I have love for you too, but I don't love you
In
in
that way.
that context just yet. Or when you say you love me, in what context are we talking about? Because see, love is a funny kind of thing. And the reason I say that, I don't like when people say, like, if you're in a relationship and someone says, I love that you're smart and that you're pretty. So if I wasn't pretty, you wouldn't love me.
Wow.
Like, when people can label what they love about you,
It's
I
conditional.
feel like this the condition as to why you love me, instead of it being like, you know, you're just a really dope being. I love your energy and I love being with you, and everything with you. Just, I can't even explain it. It just feels right. Like,
Right.
the way it just all folds together is everything. Like, but I don't like the I love you because of this and I love you because of that, because now you're saying it's because of these things that you love me, instead of it just feels conditional to me. I don't know. That's just me. It may
Right.
not be for other people. That's my opinion. But I don't like conditional love, and I don't like love sounding like it is a condition.
Right. Now that's definitely love should be unconditional. And we're talking about relationships. We're talking about trauma. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about the effects and the benefits of having communication, setting boundaries. We got a series going on. For those that's watching, we got a series that's going on trauma. Do you have the next topic in front of you in your hand by any chance?
I don't. I thought maybe you might.
No. We good. We good. Yo, so we're talking about trauma today in relationships. So if there's anything that we may have missed, you want to tie it all together and give them the point, or how you
Yeah.
want to? All right.
Yeah. Okay. So if what's most important is that you need to get your trauma resolved before you start entering into relationships,
Right.
because your trauma will affect you in all facets of your life. Your ability to communicate, your ability to how you perception, and how you take information in is all altered and affected by trauma. And it's important to deal with that trauma, so that way you can start working on a healthy slate of your self identity. And don't be afraid to experience yourself for yourself. As an adult, try things, do things, be adventurous, learn about what your own limitations are, who you are, what you like, what you don't like.
Right.
Learn yourself and allow yourself to heal. As you're learning yourself, allow yourself to heal from some things. And then when you start and you think that you're ready to start dating, have your standards out. Standards don't waver. We just want to bring that up again. They do not waver. A
Right.
standard is something I must feel safe with that person. They must like children if you have children. They must be honest with me. Standards is about meeting your needs. It's about the things that are important to you, that don't waver, that don't change. Make sure that you understand how your communication is. Don't be afraid to ask people, like in your social circle, how do I communicate? Is there anything in my communication style that I could do different or I could do better?
Right.
Get some evaluation about yourself. That way, you're not being passive. You're not being passive aggressive. You're not being aggressive. You want to be a nice, firm, assertive communicator. Okay. You want to make sure that you can say what it is that you need, what you want. You can actively listen to other people. You can hear them. You can have a healthy dialogue back and forth with a resolvement or resolution. Something productive has happened out of that conversation. And don't forget that you always got to set boundaries for yourself. Boundaries can both be, mental, and they can be physical. I don't really, like I said, you got your emotional boundaries, but boundaries are something that's just your borderline. It could be, I get that you're upset,
Right.
but don't take your anger out on me. I didn't, I don't deserve that, and I'm not going to deal with that. A boundary is you saying you can't cross this line. I'm not I'm not even engaging with you in this.
Right.
A boundaries can always start with I, or, please don't do that. When you do that, it makes me feel, and I don't like that. You're
Right.
letting someone know how to treat you through your boundaries.
Wow. And that's powerful. That's powerful right there. And while you were talking, I was just looking at the schedule. We kind of touched on the next week's schedule.
Okay.
So it worked out because the
Okay.
next week's schedule was about music.
Okay.
And it was the influence. Hold on, it was the influence, perception, and the distortions and the effects on identity and the culture that music has. So we touched on that a little bit, but we can pick up from there. And then the following one after that was the social norms and the pressure for conformity. So we kind of touched on that as well. So on the next week's episode, we can kind of do a recap, and then we can
Okay.
dive in. We can dive into more with the music, how that plays a part,
Okay.
and then the social norms. But when we're talking about relationships, everybody wants to be in one. But you said we have to make sure that we're healthy before we bring
Yes.
the baggage. And a lot of times that's where we make the mistake.
Yes.
We go in a relationship already damaged now. So it's kind of like you're going in without a plan. You're going in damaged. If they're not healed, you're both coming in damaged. Now you're damaging each other. And then sometimes y'all don't know the right way. So then in that way, you would have to get with somebody who knows how to correctly love, or that's in a healthy relationship, and learn from them. So the topic is so broad and so real and relative, because it's like it's no manual or blueprint that comes with dating. So it's like
No.
how people may say common sense, but it's like one thing you learn is common sense ain't common to somebody that ain't common. Or if they never was taught that way, that's just common to the people that think that way. So if you're a right-handed thinker, all the right-handed thinkers, that's common to them. But if this person is a left-hand thinker, you're strange. But we have this in our mind that, yo, you should already know that. I shouldn't have to tell you how to love me. I shouldn't have to. But really, you do. Because everybody, if I treat you like the right-hand thinker and you're a left-hand thinker, now I'm loving you improperly because I'm thinking this is what you like.
Right. And people should really want to study their love language as well.
Right.
Their love language, learn your love language, understand what your love language is. So you be more aware of yourself. The 5 Love Language book is a great book. I encourage everybody to find out what their love language is. Learn yourself, know yourself, know that about you. And when you really are rooted, everything else will follow suit. Right. But it just needs to be a healthy you. And I'm not saying that you're going to be perfect. I'm not saying that you're not going to make mistakes. I'm not saying that you're not going to falter, in certain areas, but you got to have your core kind of in that nice cement that it needs to be in, and everything else will kind of just fall into place. It really will. Right. Especially with relationships. Right. Stop looking at what everybody else is doing, because you're not seeing what goes on behind closed doors.
Right.
All you see is people are jumping in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out of relationships, in and out of. Why? We're not asking ourselves, why is that happening?
Right.
And we gotta stop validating our friends with that stuff too.
Right.
Women, we are the biggest supporters of each other's BS. Girl, he was wrong, and girl, yeah, girl, and you gotta, we gotta stop. We as women gotta stop doing that, and I think men also have to stop doing that for their friends. Like, man, yeah, dog. I've learned to kind of go into it like, well, okay, well, what happened? That's a broad thing. Tell me what happened as a whole. I need to know what happened as a whole. Okay, I can see where, but I will let both parties know. Hey, no, look, this is where you went wrong, because once you're in a traumatic relationship and the wheels on a traumatic codependent relationship is rolling and it's been going on for a while, it's really hard to get off that bandwagon. It's very hard to get off that bandwagon. So you really need to be at a point in your life where you're ready to make that change for yourself and to get healthy. And if you really want a healthy relationship, then take some time and heal and really get to know yourself. And then, when you're ready, you jump back out there, but you need to give it some time. Be used to being by yourself. I'm telling you that if you can't be by yourself, you'll never be able to be with anyone.
Right.
If you can't entertain yourself, honey, look, I'm going to tell you something. People who marry, us married folk in the world, honey, we still like, when I say we like our space sometimes, honey, I have the best self-time in the world. I watch whatever I want to. I read whatever I want to. I go shopping by myself. Like, I've been to the movies by myself. Like, I think that sometimes we forget how to care about ourselves.
Right.
We get so wrapped up into worrying about everybody else and caring for everybody else that you don't even know who you are, and you don't even give yourself no attention. Last time you went on a date with yourself, just was like, you know what? I'm going to take myself to dinner. I'm going to enjoy, listening to whatever podcast I want to listen to, or audio book.
Right.
I've been meaning to get to this project I've been wanting to do. There's so many ways to really just see self and just really, and I feel like too, for me, when I do self things, I get that opportunity to kind of just be with God. I feel like it's more of a me and God kind of thing.
Right.
But I enjoy moments that I have. I like my me time. I love the time with my family also, but I love my me time just as much. My kids, they get their own me time. I tell them it's important for them to know themselves. Know what you like and what you don't like. Spend time with yourself, which they do. They teenagers anyway, so you know how they be. They just, but spend time with yourself. Love yourself. Don't be self-absorbed, but love yourself.
Right. And that's a powerful thing right there. And again, we definitely touched on a lot today, and I hope that people apply it, because when we talk about relationships, I see from the outside looking in, I see a lot of people that make their mind up, and they say, because I even asked a few people, like, what's the key to your relationship? And some people say, we made a choice and we just stuck to it. And it's not where it's like, not in a bad situation where it's like, we just decided we're going to make it work. And we've been living our best life. So it's like, it can happen. It is like, not that it's not going to be no rainy days, and not that, trials and tribulations are going to come. But the thing that I see is a lot of times people may have the 80-20. 80 is good. And you let the minimumest thing, you throw the relationship away because we want perfect. We're not perfect.
No.
And I see a lot of people.
Perfection. You're never going to get perfection.
Right.
But I don't believe in the 80-20.
You don't believe in that?
No.
Salute, sis. I appreciate you, sis. Yeah, for real. Love you. Word.
But I don't believe in the 80-20.
All right. So let's talk about it. Break it down.
I believe that relationships are equal. I think that both parties carry an equal amount of weight in a relationship.
Right.
How are you weighing that? Are we weighing, if a man works outside the home and a woman works in the home, is it
Right.
is it any less equal to her work, especially if she's raising children in the household? You know what I'm saying?
Right, hold on 1 minute. When we say the 80-20, I'm talking about like the Why Did I Get Married movie, where they say, the person, if you're grading them at 100, they
Okay,
80% good to the 100. Not
okay,
work. That's just a person. Like I like
okay.
80% of what they got going on. 80% I love, but the 20, whether they get gas at night, they whatever the 20, the 20% makes them 20% makes them throw their hand in. Like the 20 is too much. Like, 80% of the person is on my checklist. I love everything. But
Okay,
these 20 are the deal breakers.
okay.
And I see a lot of people when I say they're looking for perfection in that. Like you got 80%. The person is a good person, but they may get gas at night. It becomes a
Look, look. Now they need to go and cut it out with the 80-20, because I'm gonna say like this: if you're gonna get 80, but you mad about 20, you're just a messed up individual, because you're never gonna get perfection, and they themselves are not perfect.
right.
You know, the whole mythology of women, don't fart, don't use the bathroom. That's a mess. Like, and why do we as women and women will hold themselves to that standard?
Right.
I can't not wear makeup around him, or I can't not, I can't poop in front of him. Like, honey, you keep up with that all you want to. I watched the YouTube makeup tutorial a long time ago. So when that was contour and all that stuff came out, it was real big.
Right.
And the girl said she was doing her makeup routine in the morning. She said, I've been married to my husband 5 years and he ain't never seen me without makeup. And I said, baby, I know that's got to be rough on you. And he got to be boo boo the fool. Because I would need to know what's up underneath it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
it's work for the facade. It's work for the facade. So if people are going to be flawed, I'm sure there are things about me that my husband don't like. You know what I'm saying? I get there are things that we probably do that annoy each other.
Right.
But you don't throw a relationship away if the flaws are overweighing the positive. So if that 20% is so bad that it overshadows your 80%, then you in the wrong place.
Right.
You need to go out there and find something where that 20% doesn't bother you so bad.
Right.
But that means you're focused on the negative. And like I said, you got it. The negative doesn't outweigh the positive. You got to focus on that. Everybody's got flaws. And when I say negative, I mean flaws.
Right.
There it is. We're perfectly imperfect.
Right. Right.
But be unapologetically yourself.
Right.
And don't be afraid to do that or be that. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to do that. If somebody is pointing out some things about you that really aren't that big of a deal, but that's where they're focused, then they're not for you anyway.
Right.
Ain't nobody trying to relationships. I don't like competitive relationships. I don't like to see relationships where two people are together and they're competing against each other. That's not healthy. Relationships where there's codependency, that's not healthy. Relationships where somebody's constantly manipulating somebody and abusing them and using them, to their advantage, and they're giving nothing. That's not healthy.
Right.
So you gotta really, it all really does boil down to self. There's no other way that I can put around it. If you are in a traumatic relationship, you really gotta look at self. Even when it comes to domestic violence, there is some kind of trauma that has happened that is allowing us to be held captive in this situation.
Right.
And I understand that domestic violence relationships are such a hard thing to walk away from, because the women are usually broken, or if it's the man that's being abused, they're usually broken, and it does happen. Domestic violence is a two-sided coin. They're broken. They don't know how to. They want the approval. They want the love. That they're willing to stay. So it's you really got to deal with your traumas. Y'all got to deal with your traumas. If you got some traumas, deal with it.
That's a fact.
If you didn't deal with it, deal with it. Because if you thought that you dealt with it and you didn't deal with it, you ain't gonna get no help. You probably ain't dealt with it.
It's gonna come back again. You might have suppressed it, but it'll come back again.
And it resurfaces.
Right, right,
Resurfaces right on over again.
right. And you perfectly broke it down. You summed it all together. Again, like the first time, like I get caught up in the conversation. I don't want to hold you too long because we're going on the 4 hour mark. He's gonna kill me after it's over. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's knowledge and it's well needed. And the topics that we're talking about. So again, for anybody that's watching, I encourage y'all, if you know that this video may help somebody else, to share it with them, because we're talking trauma and the different types of traumas, whether it's children, that we traumatizing our children by our actions, whether relationships, whether it's been through things that we've been through, things that we didn't never get over with, things we never talked about, things we still holding on to. We can't live in our full potential until we deal with these things. And it's like society has normalized it. Like this is the norm, but it's not normal. So as we learn today, we bring this unnormal stuff into a relationship, which is baggage. And it's like we're working against the relationship. So now we're not being honest. Now we have trust issues. And now we're wearing a mask. We're afraid to be vulnerable in front of our partner and things like that. It's like, how can you build when you're already looking at them like they're against you, or you're already looking like, I can't trust you? So how can you build or invest in that person? So today was definitely a dope subject. That's, again, it's like when we start talking relationships, that's father and child, daughter and father, daughter and mother, mother and son, husband and wife, relationships, period. Me and my pastor, me and the deacon, relationships. So it's like, if you never dealt with these things, that's on the job. You bringing all this stuff everywhere you go. So it's kind of like we're living in COVID now, where everybody's talking about the pandemic.
Yeah.
But think about traumas and our issues, our baggage. And now they get in your car with their trauma. Now, Now they dumping this stuff on us. Or attacking us because I feel uneasy about me, or because somebody picked on me when I was a kid. Now I get off on picking off on people. And it's like we go around dumping this stuff on each other. Some people knowingly, some people unknowingly. Because some people may say, nothing's wrong with me. I've always been this way. But because you come from a line of trauma, so you were taught it's normal to you at this point. My mother was that way. My grandmother was that way. And everybody had trauma issues or trauma traits. So just because grandma did it, or just because daddy did it or grandpa did it, don't mean that's the right way.
That's right.
And then, with the results, you tell by the results. So it's like surrounding yourself. You said you have history. My parents had history. A lot of people out there, they have history. You learn from them. So if you counsel with people that's where you're trying to go. So even for the people that's single, that's dealing with trauma, they the ones that need to be watching. So it's like, whoa, red flag. Oh no, you didn't say you love me on the third date. You didn't try to Netflix and chill. You don't want to go over here. You don't want to get to know me. That's right. Especially for females, but not only females, as well as males, so we can get healed and love women correctly.
That's right.
Instead of thinking, okay, I gotta get it back to the bedroom. Get it to the bedroom. That's one part of the deal. But it's like you don't know what's attached to what just you brought to your bedroom.
Right.
A whole nother ballgame.
That's right. So you should be leery. That shouldn't be the first thing. I always say it's easier to date someone, and if you decide that you don't like them, it's easier to communicate. It's easier to cut it off if you haven't slept with a person. It's easier to date and to really be open and honest with the person and really get to know them and to be able to be seen and to see each other when you haven't had sex with them. Because if you do that too early, now you're wearing the mask, because now you really want them to see something that's going to keep that activity engaged. But you can't build no relationship off of sex, because I promise you, if you do, once that wears off, because eventually it will get off, and it will wear off, because there's no substance attached to it.
Right.
What you gonna have?
Nothing. You got nothing. You got
So,
nothing.
shake the dates up. Like I said, go to the zoo, go to an aquarium, go get coffee, go to dinner. Doesn't always have to be an evening date, but you got to create the space and the form for you guys to really get to know each other. And you might have to think outside of the box. There's tons of public things that people can do, today, especially now, if people are dating now, that they've kind of opened everything back up. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to wear a mask, but take it slow and just have a good time.
Right.
Don't go into dating thinking about who we're gonna be in a relationship. Go into dating thinking about I'm just dating and I'm getting to know someone to see if I like them or not. You go out on one date, you're not obligated to go out on 2, 3, 4. He might not like you, you might not like him. Cool.
Right. And we can agree to disagree and still be friends.
And be cool. Like, if I see you street or whatever, but it's really just about that. It's about having self-control. And if you've done it wrong so many times in so many different ways, then you should be open to trying a different way. That's probably going to help you a whole lot more. And don't be overly aggressive. And I tell women that, don't be overly aggressive. I think that, there are things like we can talk about, like it's cool to say, I want to get married, I want to have children. But I think that there are some conversations that just naturally flow. And as you spend more time with a person, the more personal you get, the deeper you'll get beyond that surface. I don't think there's nothing to rush. I think that there are times that women can be overly aggressive and they can push way too hard. And it's like, first of all, why are y'all even having this conversation a week in? You know what I'm saying? So you got to kind of remind yourself about what stage are we at that is appropriate to have these kind of conversations. Right. Not that we're trying to not apply pressure or keep certain things, like we're just not trying to talk about them. But certain conversations, if they got children and you're carrying, you got to tread lightly. You're dating somebody with children and you want to know, well, why didn't she come and get him? Why do you got to have him? Like,
that's a deal breaker right there. You better not do that.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's something that you got to tread lightly about, and it's got to come at a stage in the relationship once you're in one and it's appropriate.
Right.
So make sure you're not jumping in too fast and rushing things, and but do the aspect of just getting to know someone. The hard stuff, the conversations, they'll come.
Right. Organically, you don't have to force it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and I'm definitely excited, yo. I definitely appreciate you coming. I'm not gonna be getting fussed at by your husband. He's gonna be like, yo, y'all 4 hours. I told y'all, all right. Yo, but it was definitely dope. I'm looking forward to. I'm definitely looking forward to the series continuing going. So again, I think we touched on everything when it comes. Not everything. Whoa, let me take that back. We didn't touch on everything, but I think we touched on a broad enough spectrum. We're dealing with the relationships.
Yes.
When we come back, if people have questions, right now, if y'all have questions for the next one, put that in the comments, even if those that's watching after we go off live. Mm-hmm. If you have comments or questions, put them in the comments, and then we'll start the show next time, picking up from here, going into the music, and then the stresses of, wait a minute, I don't want to say it wrong. The social norm pressures of conformity, and that's conforming to what society is trying to paint. So we'll go from there, and then if we want to expound from there, we can. But that's what we're looking at for the next show. But I really thank you because you come in here, you have the knowledge, and you're helping people. And you, even though it's like, okay, some questions I may ask is like, all right, Sion, now, but it's like I ask because like I put myself in different people's shoes, like, well, what about this person? So that when the question comes out, when you give the knowledge out, that it may help them. So I definitely appreciate your patience. I definitely appreciate the knowledge, and you have a heart to help people.
Yes.
So, yo, I definitely like what you're doing. I definitely appreciate you coming by. If you have any last words to, this would be like the Oprah's final thought moment. So this will be Natalie's final thought, and then from there we're gonna sign off from there.
I just want to thank everybody for watching and those that will watch, those that sat through the live tonight. I know it was a long live. I just want to say thank you for rocking with us. So let's go. If you do have questions or comments, then maybe you want to ask me something sidebar offline. You can go to my YouTube channel, my Facebook, and just type in Natalie Collier. I will pop up. You can, send me a message if you got something you want to talk about. I just appreciate it. And I hope that once my platform is up and running, that you guys will come and show the same love that you show, when you come and rock with me throughout the series. I appreciate it.
Right. So yeah, that's dope right there. Yeah. So again, this is the trauma series.
Yes.
Natalie Collier. Hopefully y'all will check in. We should be back in 2 weeks, I think.
Yes.
All right. So we'll be back in 2 weeks and we'll take it from there. And again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. This is the Proof in the Pudding podcast show. I'm the host, Sion 919. And special thank you again to Natalie Collier. And we up out of here.